American comic, I'm lost, I'm surrounded by superheroes with father issues. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 776, Kara and Clark, brother and sister, were arrested again? The engine of the Batfighter screamed in the stratosphere. Bruce Wayne stared at the skeleton ship structure diagram transmitted to him by the beating steel skeleton on the holographic screen. Pressing the switch on the operating panel, Bruce activated the atomized coating of special materials to make the Batfighter stronger. In his sight, several Brainiac drones filed out from the belly of the mothership. Facing the sky full of planes, Bruce pressed the button at the bottom of the joystick, and the jammers popped out on both sides of the wings with a bang. The drone group fell into short flight speed slowdown due to the interference of the jammer. Taking this opportunity, the Batfighter turned into a black arrow and pierced into the gap. Boom! 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 The tungsten core bullets fired by the machine guns were fired at the drones. When the last drone turned into a fireball, Bruce saw the cracks in the mothership's defense layer. It was the wound torn by Azu and Black Adam, which was now using fluorescent blue energy liquid. Gritting his teeth tightly, Bruce operated a plane to rush forward. A high-frequency vibration drill extended from the belly of the fighter. The nano-armor of the skeleton ship boiled into silver mist at the moment of contact, and the cockpit was suddenly filled with the smell of burning metal. Crash! When the gravity out of control alarm sounded, Batman had already ejected from the seat, spread his bat wings, and nailed the grappling gun into the 40-meter-high cabin ceiling beam. The air inside the mothership had a certain sweet and fishy smell. Bruce swung between the steel beams, scanning the road ahead with his eyepiece. Along the way were endless mechanical incubators, and each culture tank was curled up with a half-finished killing robot. When his boot soles just touched the ground, the incubator suddenly gushed out coolant, and the robots opened their scarlet electronic eyes synchronously. The first wave of attacks came from the ceiling. The maintenance mechanical claw ejected, and the sharp probe aimed at Bruce's carotid artery. Bruce rolled sideways and threw 3 bat darts at the same time. The darts drew a death spiral in the air and accurately cut off the hydraulic joints of the mechanical body. Before the falling debris touched the ground, the second wave of attacks arrived. The hatched robots had already stood up, charging their shoulder particle cannons and rushing towards Bruce. Bruce tore open the lining of his cape, and the cape made of graphene fibers instantly unfolded into an electromagnetic barrier. The particle stream rippled on the barrier. After using the electromagnetic barrier to resist the particle attack, Bruce took the opportunity to throw out a microelectronic bomb. Boom! The impulse generated by the explosion plunged the entire corridor into darkness. Bruce was in the darkness, watching the approaching scarlet light. When the first skeleton robot entered the arm's reach, Batman suddenly squatted down, and rushed forward with the heels of his tactical boots touching the ground. With a dull bang, the high-voltage electric baton ejected from Bruce's armor stabbed into the robot's mouth, and the overloaded energy core instantly blew the enemy into burning scrap metal. Facing the robots that continued to rush up, Bruce calmly drew out his special dagger. The robots in Brainiac's spaceship were blocking the aisle, and now all rushed towards Bruce. The newly born mechanical body was integrated with Kryptonian biotechnology, and the cell tissue peeled off from the Kryptonian body was beating in its eye sockets. Dang! The dagger scraped sparks on the surface of the mechanical body. After fighting with the opponent for several rounds, he quickly retreated. During the fight, Bruce found that the opponent was deliberately protecting the neck interface. When the robot's claws chopped down again, he deliberately exposed the flaw in his left shoulder. The moment the claws penetrated the armor, the alloy dagger had already wedged into the robot's cervical vertebrae. The mechanical body made a boom explosion, and the light in the eye sockets quickly disappeared. Bruce twisted the dagger until he heard the crisp sound of the machine core shattering. On the other side, Clark and Kara also entered the skeleton ship. Clark's fist pierced through the robot rushing up with a boom. Then the scarlet beam of his heat vision melted through the robot's back armor and nailed the entire robot to the corridor wall. Crack! The metal wall cracked with the impact point as the center, and the electric sparks bursting from the cracks illuminated the mechanical army rushing from behind. Clark then stomped on the ground and leaped into the air. The heat rays from his eyes blew away the drones flying nearby. The left side is yours, Kara's voice came to him. Kara had a good impression of her cousin in this other world. In her eyes, he was a kind farm boy who had not grown up yet, and hoped he would never go astray if he followed Mr. Peter. Clark was the kind of person she hoped her cousin, Injustice Superman, would truly become. Kara took a look at Clark, who was fighting with the robots, and then she put her mind in order and slammed into the enemy group. She was like a silver comet, and wherever she passed, she saw mechanical arms torn apart by her bare hands and smoking processors. 3 huge robots tried to surround her, but she grabbed their ankles and swung them like a ball and chain and smashed them out. After killing the robots, Kara's eyes swept over the swarm of nano-arms attacking from the dark. She took a deep breath, and her freezing breath froze the mechanical worms that rushed over into dust. Clark took the opportunity to tear off the entire energy pipeline, wielding a giant whip weighing several tons. Wherever he went, the defenses shattered like pieces of paper, and the fragments of circuit boards that burst out brushed his cheek. Right, Kara's voice mixed with a sound of metal tearing, and she rushed to Clark's right. She grabbed the heads of 2 mechanical guards and collided with them, and the titanium skulls shattered like eggshells. Clark stepped aside to avoid the pulse cannon. The shell exploded in the corridor behind him, and he took the opportunity to tear off half of the explosion-proof door and threw it out. The rotating metal door panel cut all the robots rushing nearby in half. The whole corridor was shaking. Kara stomped her feet to shatter the ground, grabbed a 2-meter square steel plate and used it as a fly swatter to sweep across. The moment the robot was slapped into the wall, Clark added a straight punch, and the shock wave shook the enemy into a rain of parts. In the smell of burnt lubricant, the two stood back to back, with smoking mechanical wreckage piled under their feet. I didn't expect that we two, who are not from the same world, could fight together, Kara said to Clark behind her with mixed feelings. Me too, this is the first time I've fought shoulder to shoulder and back to back with my cousin, Clark smiled and said, even in my world, my cousin is very violent. She just woke up and beat me and Azu up at the farm. After Clark finished speaking, he saw the robot rushing over and didn't bother to continue talking to the cousin from another world, and rushed forward directly. Crack! Clark crushed the head of the robot that rushed over. Kara was not to be outdone. 3 heavy mechas broke through the isolation door. As soon as the 6-barrel machine gun was charged, Kara tore off the barrel. She inserted the hot barrel into the gap of the mecha joints and kicked off its hydraulic knee. The whole set of actions was faster than the mecha system's self-check. Clark grabbed the mechanical arm of the middle mecha and threw it over his shoulder to the enemy on the right. Boom! At the moment the 2 mechanical bodies collided, he added 2 sonic boom punches. The shock wave was transmitted along the metal, shaking the internal circuit board into powder. The mecha on the left was frozen by Kara's freezing breath, and was shattered into ice chips with an elbow. With the alarm, the 2 rushed to the main control room door at the same time. Clark's shoulder was the first to touch the door panel, and the uniform and the door panel rubbed orange-red sparks. The 3-meter-thick alloy door twisted and flew like a can hit by a shell. The mechanical robot behind the door had no time to raise its gun before it was cut into 2 by Kara's thermal vision, and the molten metal rolled to the ground with a bang. Just after the 2 entered, Bruce also rushed over quickly. After the 3 of them gathered, Bruce had no time to speak before Kara suddenly covered her head and fell to the side with a painful sound. What's wrong with you? Kara. Bruce grabbed Kara. I heard the voices of tens of billions of people, right here. Kara's back of the head hit Batman's armor, and the coolness of the metal made her sober for a short time. The surging sound waves in the cochlea suddenly became concrete. She heard countless voices, and she pointed forward while covering her forehead. These sounds rang out, ta-ta-ta, and each sound was like a kryptonite needle piercing the temple. Bruce watched in shock as the black door in front of him slowly opened. Clark looked into the huge space in the room with an expression of disbelief on his face. On the dome of the mothership, countless glass beads were hung as protective shields, and a miniature city was curled up in each bead. Watching this scene, Kara felt extremely painful and didn't realize that her nails were digging into her palms. She saw the Planet Daily building in the nearby metropolis frozen in the moment of the explosion. Further away, the Krypton Crystal Tower in Kandor City tilted at a 45-degree angle, and at the bottom of the tower, a sesame-sized mother was holding her baby and crying helplessly. This is our home, Kandor City, and my home, Subaru City. We must help them, Kara said excitedly to Bruce and Clark. Bruce walked up and gently placed his hand on the shield. I don't know if I can do it, but I will try my best to help save them. Me too. Clark walked up and looked at the people in the city model in shock. Even if I can't do it, I will let the Godfather help you save them." The three were talking, and they didn't notice the mechanical arms slowly approaching from behind. When Clark became aware of it and turned around abruptly, whoosh, the mechanical arms instantly tied up the three. Clark and the other two, who didn't notice for a moment, were tied up by the mechanical arms and caught in midair. Kara struggled hard, her eyes shot out heat vision, but was immediately entangled by more mechanical arms. Her eyes were covered, the heat vision rebounded, and she screamed in pain. "Kara Zor-El, Carl from another world, you are finally here. I always thought my collection was complete until I met you." Chapter 777 Peter can become a powerful leader. People who save the world. Soon Brainiac turned his gaze to Bruce again. "Every time you resisted me, you failed. You are not extraordinary. You are just a regular specimen of a primitive race. You don't mean much to me." After speaking to Bruce, he turned and left. "Kill him." As the sound of Brainiac's departure sounded, the skeleton robot came over, raised his hand and aimed at Bruce, ready to release the energy cannon. At the critical moment, a thermal vision rushed towards the robot army. The robot that was about to release energy at Bruce was instantly cut in half by the thermal vision energy. Amid the boom explosion, Injustice Superman slowly walked towards the few people. "It seems that you are in a lot of trouble." Injustice Superman walked over and glanced at Kara and Clark, who were tied up. Kara heard the voice of Injustice Superman and asked excitedly, "Carl, it's really you. Great, you're okay." "I'm fine. Brainiac can't defeat me yet." He flew to Kara and tore off her mechanical arm. The mechanical arms on Bruce and Clark were also quickly torn apart by him. "Why didn't the others come?" Unjust Superman frowned and asked Bruce, who was rescued. "They are attacking the subbody in case we fail." "Car, why are you okay?" Kara suppressed her excitement and came up to ask him. Looking at this sister who cares about him, Superman felt a warm current in his heart and explained to her, "That's because..." Before he finished speaking, a boom sounded. Then, in the astonished eyes of the four people, they saw Firestorm with flames on his head, falling heavily in front of them. "Firestorm?" Bruce looked at the sudden appearance of Firestorm in astonishment. "Why are you here?" Firestorm smiled and took a step closer to him. "Brainiac unified our divided minds. From now on, we will think as a whole. I have become more powerful, which I could not do before." Bruce frowned and said, "This is not you, Firestorm. Your mind is controlled by Brainiac?" "No, this is me. My mind has been completely liberated." He shook his head, and released a powerful flame impact with both hands, rushing towards the few people. Injustice Superman was about to step forward to kill Firestorm, but the green vines rushed over and threw him to the ground with a bang. Clark looked at the swamp monster, who suddenly walked out of the shadows in shock. "There is also a swamp monster." Firestorm slowly flew in front of the swamp monster and said to Clark and the other four, "Brainiac has deciphered the power of the green of all things, and he has mastered the Firestorm matrix. All this knowledge will become his collection." Looking at the increasing number of robots gradually coming out from behind the swamp monster, Kara whispered to Bruce, "Do you have any ideas, Batman?" "I'm thinking, maybe I can make them recover. Leave the swamp monster to me." After saying that, Bruce quickly rushed towards the swamp monster. Injustice Superman, Clark and Kara faced Firestorm and the robot army. "Boy, did your godfather teach you how to fight better?" Injustice Superman took a look at Clark's torn uniform and asked him. "Of course," Clark said unhappily, "but my godfather taught me more, how to be an earthling who protects mankind." As he said that, he turned into lightning and rushed towards the robot. Seeing Clark rushing towards him, Injustice Superman's expression became complicated. "Clark is the kind of person I want you to be, Carl." Kara flew over and said to him, "I've met Mr. Peter Patrick. Carl, I hope you can understand that you should be hope, not fear." Injustice Superman shook his head with a cold face. "You don't understand, Kara. I have reduced the crime rate in the world, and even ended any possible form of large-scale war. Human beings were finally forced to live a happy and beautiful peaceful life. Peter Patrick has always been just a passerby. He puts himself in a high position to criticize everything, but he has never done anything for this world. You must know, Kara, people are killing each other. They need a strong leader. Peter Patrick can be this leader in their world, but he refuses. He will eventually be backlashed by his own arrogance and arrogance." Kara said to him angrily, "No, you have obliterated the autonomy of human beings. You rely on your own will to make the whole world live according to your aesthetics and your three views. This is essentially no different from the people living in the virtual world in human movies. I will stop you. If you still do it the same way as before, I will oppose you after everything is over here. After Kara finished speaking, she rushed towards Firestorm. Welcome to my elemental party. Firestorm's syllables were all buzzing. He raised his hand, and dozens of skeleton metal robots poured out from the passage. Facing Kara rushing up, the golden red light ball bursting from Firestorm's fingertips forced Kara back to the radiation isolation zone. The robots took the opportunity to deploy a swarm formation, and the continuous impact caused ripples in the biological force field around her. Clark, who came to help, grabbed two robots and collided with them. A deafening explosion sounded. Facing the joint attack of Kara and Clark, a group of robots released energy with their hands to form a shield. Clark tried to break through the shield and rush forward, but the sonic boom fist was deflected by the quantum shield before reaching the target, and the shell of the mothership was blasted out. The recoil shook him backwards. Seeing that Clark's attack was frustrated, Firestorm took the opportunity to release a gamma ray burst and nailed Clark to the molten floor. Now is the end of the Kryptonians. As he spoke, Firestorm's hands gathered into miniature suns. Facing Firestorm's attack, Injustice Superman on one side suddenly jumped up, and the output of thermal vision increased the power, instantly breaking the shield. At the same time, he exhaled freezing breath towards Firestorm. The nuclear fusion reaction stopped suddenly due to the low temperature, and the alarm of matrix overload rang throughout the mothership. The robot army lost control in the chaos. Injustice Superman rushed over at super speed, grabbed the back of Firestorm's neck, and slammed him to the ground. Kara took the opportunity to fly over and punched Firestorm's chin, knocking him rolling along the ground and unable to stand up again. On the other side, Injustice Batman faced Swamp Thing. Listen to me, Swamp Thing, your power is used to harm the Earth. Wake up. No. Swamp Thing slowly walked towards him. Now Brainiac is the guardian of the green of the Earth. They will live forever. Before he finished speaking, the vines sent by Swamp Thing attacked Bruce. Bruce immediately dodged. The moment his hook was driven into the bulkhead, dark green vines grew wildly along the tungsten cable, and the thorny tendrils wrapped around his entire right arm in the blink of an eye. The biological scan of the tactical eyepiece showed that these plant cells were secreting lytic enzymes, corroding his Kevlar fiber. The green of all things greets you, Bruce. The voice of the swamp monster seemed to carry the moisture of the rotten leaves. Wow, when the bat dart cut through the first layer of vines, the new branches were filled with green fluorescent liquid spurting out. He decisively cut off the hook and fell to the deck below. When he landed, the mud was up to his knees. The metal of the mothership under his feet mixed with humus into tar-like jelly, and every step was like breaking free from the living swamp. Bruce used all his strength to break free, rolling and hiding behind the wreckage of the machine. He remained calm and quickly threw the electromagnetic pulse grenade. With a bang, the grenade paralyzed Brainiac's circuit, but made the plant part even more violent. Facing the violent plants, Bruce used a liquid nitrogen jet to freeze the attacking vines. But new buds immediately sprouted at the broken ends. The tactical eyepiece showed that the oxygen content was plummeting. These plants were madly consuming the air in the cabin. Taking a deep breath, his bat uniform popped out the armor. Bruce approached the swamp monster fiercely, and with a bang, his stab was blocked by the suddenly raised wooden shield. Seizing this momentary flaw, the tree roots wrapped around his waist and abdomen and lifted him into the air. The vines drilled in through the gaps in the battlesuit, and the protective layer was corroded by spores to form honeycomb-like holes. Bruce could feel the pain in his ribs. Look, Dark Knight, the swamp monster's eyes flashed with images, and Gotham, swallowed by the green of all things, was distorted in the picture. This is what a city should look like. No concrete, no sin, only a pure cycle of life. Ahem. Bruce coughed out chlorophyll-containing blood and his right hand quietly touched his belt. When the vines tried to invade his mask, he detonated a prearranged smoke bomb. In the emerald fog, plant cells made a frying sound. Bruce fired a sonic dart the moment he was thrown against the bulkhead. The exploding sonic bomb knocked Swamp Thing to the ground. Swamp Thing, controlled by Brainiac, lost the protection of the green of the Earth and was quickly defeated by Batman's attack. Looking at Swamp Thing lying on the ground and falling into coma, he took a deep breath. Good job. Injustice Superman grabbed Firestorm's feet and threw him to the ground. Looking at the two people lying side by side on the ground, he asked Bruce, "Can you wake them up? I think I can change their brain waves." He took out a handheld instrument and scanned the two people. After being scanned, Firestorm and Swamp Thing woke up. Firestorm felt a little pain in his head and asked, "What happened? Brainiac awakened your third personality. Now you need to return to Earth and help others fight against the sub-body." Batman asked the two awake people to return to Earth quickly. Chapter 778, Riven's Raven Order joins the battlefield. Meanwhile, in the world of Hogwarts, Raven already knew about Peter's trip to the world of injustice. Although Peter asked her to stay at school or on the farm, she was not the kind of person who could sit idle. Her advanced magic could already open a dimensional portal to the world of injustice. However, at this moment, Raven paused her action of summoning members of the Raven Order to go to the world of injustice. At this moment, she was standing on the playground of Hogwarts School, frowning at the notice in front of her. Dolores Jane Umbridge, Senior Inquisitor, replaces Albus Dumbledore as the principal of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. The above regulations are in accordance with the Education Order Number 28. Signature, Minister of Magic, Cornelius Oswald Fudge. This notice was posted all over the school overnight, and people in the castle seemed to be saying that Dumbledore was in the school office and had a conflict with the people from the Ministry of Magic. Due to special reasons, the third round of the Triwizard Tournament was temporarily cancelled and the competition was stopped. Dumbledore was declared guilty by the Ministry of Magic for spreading the news of the mysterious man many times. What no one expected was that Dumbledore finally rebelled against the Ministry of Magic and escaped. He escaped after subduing two Aurors, the senior investigator, the Minister of Magic and his junior assistant, but there was no explanation on the notice. Now no matter where Harry went in the castle, he heard people talking about only one topic, that is, Dumbledore's escape. Although some details may have been distorted, Harry recently overheard a second-year girl confidently telling another second-year girl, "Minister Fudge is now lying in St. Mungo's hospital with his head turned into a pumpkin." Although this news is a bit unreliable, other news is surprisingly accurate. For example, everyone now knows that among the students, only Harry and Marietta witnessed the situation in Dumbledore's office with their own eyes. Marietta is still in the school hospital, so Harry is overwhelmed by classmates who want to get first-hand information. I believe him. I believe Dumbledore will be back soon. Ernie Macmillan listened to Harry's description attentively, and said confidently on the way back from the herbology class, "They couldn't get rid of him when we were in the second year, and they can't do it this time." The fat monk told me. He lowered his voice mysteriously, and Ron had to lean closer to him to hear his words. Last night, they searched for him in the castle and the playground. Later, Umbridge wanted to enter his office, but she couldn't get through the mechanisms. Finally, the headmaster's office was automatically closed and she couldn't get in. Ernie smiled smugly. It's obvious that she had a big temper. "Humph, I think she wants to sit in the headmaster's office," Ron said unhappily as they walked up the stone steps and into the entrance hall. "She bullies all the teachers. This stupid egomaniac, power-hungry woman. She must be the one I hate the most." Ernie didn't wait for him to finish, and came up to him and said, "There's one more thing. Do you know? Hermione disappeared before, and Fleur also disappeared. Everyone said that Mr. Padraic gave them a love potion to make them willing. Hey, I say. Do you really want to finish this sentence, Ernie?" As he was talking, Draco Malfoy walked out from behind the door. Behind Draco Malfoy were two followers, Crabbe and Goyle. A dissatisfied look appeared on his pale, pointed face. "I'm afraid I have to deduct a few points from Gryffindor and Hufflepuff for your slanderous remarks about Mr. Padraic," Malfoy said in a long tone. Ernie said immediately, "No, you can't deduct points from prefects, Malfoy." "Yes, I know prefects can't deduct points from each other, King Weasel," Malfoy said mockingly about his appearance. Hearing this, Crabbe and Goyle beside him chuckled. "Also, about what you said about Headmaster Dumbledore, about the investigation team," Malfoy pointed to a small silver eye symbol under the prefect badge on his robes. The investigation team is a group of selected students who all support the Ministry of Magic and are handpicked by Professor Umbridge. In short, members of the investigation team do have the power to deduct points. So, Ernie, I'm going to deduct 5 points from you for not respecting our new headmaster, 5 points for slandering Mr. Padraic, and 5 points for Potter, because I don't like you, Weasley. Your shirt is not tucked in, so I'm going to deduct another 5 points. Ron saw that Malfoy was getting more and more arrogant and drew out his wand. But Harry quickly pushed it aside and whispered, "Don't." "A very wise move, Potter," Malfoy whispered. "New headmaster, new era. Now be honest, Potter, And the Weasel King, he showed a smug smile at the corner of his mouth. Also, we are not only the investigation team, but more importantly, I have become a member of a very powerful and mysterious organization. As long as I want, I can enter different worlds, witness great miracles, and follow Mr. Padraic Malfoy. Malfoy was interrupted by Raven, who came up before he finished speaking. Raven glared at him. Shut your mouth. Do you want to be expelled? After seeing Raven, Malfoy and his two followers immediately became timid. No, Raven, I just, Raven said to him with an unhappy expression, if your mouth is like a colander, you know what I will do? Yes, then let's go. We have a new mission. Hearing about the new mission, Malfoy immediately became energetic. This was his first official mission after joining the Raven Order. Unjust world. Raven's cloak fluttered on the wreckage of the Metropolis Bridge, and the chaos magic condensed into crystal-like powerful magical energy at her fingertips. When the Brainiac drone flew over the river, she tore the dimensional rift, and several figures stepped out from the surging shadows. Draco Malfoy, Pansy Parkinson, Blaise Zabini, Luna Lovegood, Professor Lupin, and others walked out of the portal in shocked eyes. Raven's newly established Raven Club not only recruited Malfoy, Pansy Parkinson, Blaise Zabini, and several Slytherin students, but also Luna Lovegood, a student in the same grade as Raven. She usually looks dazed, as if her appearance in any place is accidental, and obviously exudes a strange and erratic temperament. Moreover, her eyes always look blankly in the direction where there is no one, but she can know who is walking towards her behind her. Luna has a weird personality, and her classmates think she is a lunatic. She dresses differently from ordinary people, likes to preach her strange ideas to everyone who is willing to listen to her, and in some ways she seems to be out of touch with reality. Such a weird girl. Unexpectedly, gets along well with Raven. She always has a curious mind to explore Raven, and is also very interested in Peter's farm and life adventures. She has also read the fake book written by Loki about Peter several times. As for Professor Lupin, since the professor left, Raven borrowed a large amount of galleons from Peter and mailed it to the teacher who impressed her the most. Thinking of establishing the Raven Society, Raven wrote to Professor Lupin to help teach everyone in the Raven Society the dark arts. Although he felt that Raven's behavior was a bit inappropriate, considering the current chaotic situation, Headmaster Dumbledore was investigated, the school was in chaos, and Voldemort appeared, it would be a good thing for the students to have more power, so he finally agreed to join the Raven Society. Oh, my God. Is the world going to end? Seeing the incredible scene in front of him, Malfoy asked in shock. So, they need the help of our Padraic army, Raven said and released a powerful spell. The black flame giant snake summoned by the magic fire spell entangled the mechanical army, and the silicon-based shell was instantly burned in the magic flames. Luna looked at the robot army in front of her and felt it was extremely interesting, but not afraid. At least she was much calmer than Malfoy. I think the key is the spaceship above our heads. Luna took out her wand and pointed at the mothership not far away. I don't know why, but I have this feeling, be careful. Seeing a plane rushing over, Professor Lupin immediately used the armor spell to prop up a light shield above everyone's head. Yes, it's right there. That should be the mothership. Raven looked at the skeleton ship and nodded. You guys clear these robots here, I'll go there. Raven flew towards the mothership. At the same time, inside the mothership, Clark and the other four also encountered trouble. Brainiac and the spaceship finally appeared. Slowly falling from the sky, Brainiac said to the men, you were able to deal with Firestorm and Swamp Thing, which was beyond my expectation, but this is the end, I am supreme. Over time, the entire universe will be concentrated in me and shaped according to my will. Bruce clenched his fist. Then we will stop you, I only offer you salvation. Your environment has been poisoned, your civilization has exhausted its energy, and the decline of the Earth is inevitable. Unjust Superman was too lazy to talk nonsense with him and flew forward directly. Bang! His fist was blocked by the mechanical arm on Brainiac's back. Brainiac, who was faster, boom and knocked Superman back. Seeing Superman frustrated, Clark, Kara and Bruce rushed up together. Brainiac stood in place, with his hands clasped in front of his chest, controlling the several mechanical arms behind him to fight with the four people. Bang! 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 The mechanical arms fought with the four besieged people. Silver streams of light formed in it, and just by standing there without taking any action, the mechanical arm behind him took on the fierce attacks from four people. Chapter 779 Mr. Peter is here. We are saved. Bang! The mechanical arm grabbed Bruce's arm, and Brainiac threw it out heavily. Then he grabbed Clark's neck with his backhand. If it was your godfather Peter Patrick, I would still be a little afraid, but if it was you, Clark Kent, it's not enough. With a bang, he slammed Clark to the ground. A deafening sound rang out. Hoa! Roaring, Injustice Superman took the lead in diving. The fragments of his cape burned into meteors behind him, and his sonic boom punch hit Brainiac. Raising his mechanical arm to block, Brainiac backhandedly punched Injustice Superman and knocked him away. Brainiac is proficient in almost all levels of technology, possesses superhuman strength and endurance, and is even stronger than Superman. Now, after absorbing countless technologies from the Earth, his strength has soared rapidly. You should know that you have no chance of winning now. This universe needs someone with greater power to control it, and I am the one who controls it. He looked at Injustice Superman. I can match your strength, but you cannot match my wisdom. I have killed billions of Kryptonians like you. He quickly moved to the side of Injustice Superman with a whoosh and threw a punch. Batman was the first to react. The electromagnetic pulse grenade he threw exploded in the air. With a boom, the explosion exploded in the air. Brainiac stretched out his hand to block the electromagnetic pulse that was coming at him. The mechanical arm grabbed Kara's arm and threw her aside. With a boom explosion, Kara fell from the ceiling, but was knocked away again the next second. The alloy ground in the core area of the mothership began to dissolve under everyone's feet. Brainiac's metal body rose from the control console, and the silver-gray surface was flowing with complex patterns. Injustice Superman turned into a meteor and slammed into Brainiac. The vacuum wave caused by his fist breaking the sound barrier tore the equipment along the way into pieces. Brainiac raised his right arm, and the nanometal instantly formed a sharp cone. The moment flesh and bone collided with metal, the shock wave shattered the mothership's gravity stabilizer, and the suspended metal fragments embedded in the wall like shotgun shells. Then Injustice Superman was knocked away with a bang. Several lasers shot out from Brainiac's mechanical arm, forming a laser array. Kara used her body to knock Superman away, but her left shoulder armor was cut off by the laser. The blood of the Kryptonian girl spurted out immediately. Bruce's golden kryptonite dagger spun at his fingertips. He took advantage of the gap in the laser array, charging to break into the control area, and rushed towards Brainiac. Brainiac's neck suddenly cracked, and the mechanical arm suddenly stretched out and chopped down at a speed beyond human vision. Clark rushed over in the sparks of the collision between the mechanical arm and the blade limb. After giving up defense and taking 3 energy shocks, he endured the pain and grabbed Brainiac's shoulders. Frozen breath and thermal vision were released at the same time, and the liquid metal became brittle in the extreme heat and cold. Ah! Kara roared and took the opportunity to stab, and her hand knife pierced through the chest of the mechanical body like a spear of light. Kara thought she had succeeded, but she didn't expect Brainiac's body to suddenly liquefy. The silver-gray wave engulfed the entire core area, and every drop of liquid metal turned into a micro-drill. Superman protected Batman behind him, and Kara drew a zigzag trajectory in the air and was instantly knocked out. The frequency of the biological force field has been analyzed. As the mechanical sound rang out, Brainiac's mechanical arm condensed into a sharper spike. Superman caught the first wave of attacks with his bare hands and was knocked out again. The overloaded combat environment caused the metal liquid to boil and evaporate, and the mothership sounded the mournful cry of structural collapse. Brainiac, who had recondensed his body, released a powerful energy shock. The shock wave swept across the entire universe, and Clark, Injustice Superman, Kara and Batman were instantly blown away. When everything calmed down, Injustice Superman knelt on the wreckage of the disintegrated mothership, gasping for breath. Kara fell to the ground, covering her exposed skin with the fragments of her cape. Batman fell beside the twisted joystick, blood dripping from the cracks in his mask. Only Clark was still standing. Clark, his uniform tattered, looked at the seemingly invincible Brainiac and covered his chest. "I told you, you can't beat me. What about me?" As soon as Brainiac finished speaking, a voice sounded behind him. Raven released a purple magical energy, which hit Brainiac's back. The powerful magic instantly surrounded and bound Brainiac. Brainiac, who was completely controlled, let out a scream. Clark took the opportunity to rush over, and his fist gathered all his strength, turning into a flash of lightning. The runaway power seemed to flow under his skin, and the pain caused his bio-force field to break through the critical point in an instant. Clark's last punch seemed to penetrate time and space. He roared and hit Brainiac's chin, who was controlled by Raven's magic. Bang! Brainiac, who was hit by the powerful force, immediately fell to the ground. Countless metals were turned into powder under his impact. Deafening explosions sounded around. The mothership armor retreated like melted butter, and the material crystals turned into elementary particles under the absolute force. The shock wave swept across the entire universe, and Brainiac fell heavily to the ground. Part of his mechanical neurons were exposed, and he uttered an unbelievable voice, "No, this doesn't match the calculation. Although the Godfather is not here, this punch was taught to me by the Godfather." Looking at Brainiac, who was knocked down by a punch, Clark said with a big breath. At the same time, the metropolitan city on Earth, the people of the Raven Society also fell into a white-hot state to deal with the sub-body. Luna Lovegood's silver eyes reflected the flying drones in the sky. Her footsteps stepped on the asphalt road that seemed to be melting, and her socks were covered with fluorescent green dust. 3 mechanical octopuses swooped down from the sky, and the ion beams bursting from the tips of their tentacles melted the telephone booth on the corner into a glass solution. Close your ears and listen. The arc drawn by Luna's wand condensed into a hummingbird-shaped barrier in the air. On the other side, Professor Lupin's gray hair was lifted by the heat wave. He threw 3 cutting spells with his backhand, and the silver light sank into the octopus's abdomen, but only a few blue sparks were created. This strange armor absorbs magic. The werewolf's unique vertical pupils shrank, and Lupin tore open the shirt that was burned by the laser. His shoulder blades began to bulge unnaturally. "I'll deal with them, Malfoy. Be careful." Left, Draco Malfoy's snake ring was getting hot. He leaned against the wall and looked at the holographic projection projected by the device that Raven gave him. Several scarlet light spots came from all directions of the 3-dimensional map, and the closest one was only 15 feet away from them. "Damn, these tin cans can actually apparate." He waved the hawthorn wood wand and turned the steel guardrail beside him into a big snake spitting out tongues. He didn't expect the first action of the Raven Order to be so exciting. At the same time, the mechanical body several dozen meters away suddenly reorganized into a mechanical eyeball with a diameter of 3 meters. When the energy ring at the iris began to charge, Luna looked at all this with a face full of shock. What kind of technology is this? More gorgeous and strange than magic. Facing the mechanical eyeball, the tip of Luna's wand sprayed pearl-colored mist, condensing into strange shapes in the air. When the laser beam emitted by the mechanical eyeball penetrated the mist, Luna's wool scarf fluttered in the wind, and she danced to avoid a sudden crack in the ground. "Be careful." Lupin's wolf claws had already pierced into the protective shield of the mechanical eyeball, and the energy burned the hair and emitted a burnt smell. Just when Lupin could hardly hold on, a blasting spell accurately hit the energy aggregator in the center of the iris, and countless fragments burst out in the fire. Then, in Luna's incredible eyes, her wand suddenly wrote ancient runes automatically, and the silver runes entangled the scattered air and woven into a huge network in the air. Luna turned her head and saw a figure appear behind her. Peter Padraic. When the mechanical octopus swarm launched attacks from several directions at the same time, Peter suddenly joined the battlefield and released star-like magic particles. Draco was surprised to find that his armor spell came into contact with a strange magic particle, trapping the 2 octopuses in a shaking halo. The rune magic particles in the air produced a strange resonance with the magic energy released by several people, and the energy dust of the entire street began to rotate counterclockwise, forming an energy vortex. With a boom explosion, the magic impact formed by the energy vortex swept away all the nearby mechanical octopuses. After Peter enhanced the magic of several people, he instantly killed the nearby threats. Malfoy looked at Peter in shock. He didn't expect Mr. Padraic's magic power to be so strong. He had never seen the other party take action before, but now Peter stunned him with one move. Professor Lupin also breathed a sigh of relief when he saw Peter appear. With Peter, he was assured of the safety of these children. Peter, who was watched by everyone, looked at the few people with a slightly surprised look. He didn't expect that these people would come to the world of injustice. Especially Luna. This girl was also an outlier in Hogwarts. Harry couldn't figure her out, especially when he found out that Luna was the only one besides himself who could see the Thestrals. Peter still remembered that she joined Dumbledore's army, studied very hard, trained hard, and finally played a role in the Battle of the Department of Mysteries, where she bravely fought against the Death Eaters and was knocked unconscious. After destroying Voldemort, the girl seemed to become a famous naturalist in the wizarding world, and eventually married Rolf Scamander, the grandson of Newt Scamander, the author of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, and had a pair of twin sons. Mr. Peter. Luna looked at Peter, who suddenly appeared, and shouted in surprise. Chapter 780, Azu finally doesn't have to be a star spirit anymore. You are Luna Lovegood, right? Peter came over and asked her. Why are you here? And, Peter said, looking at Professor Lupin. Professor Lupin, I didn't expect to see you here. Professor Lupin breathed a sigh of relief and came over to shake hands with Peter. Raven said that the club she founded needed some exercise, so we came here. Professor Lupin smiled bitterly and said, I didn't expect the danger here to be far beyond my expectations. Peter nodded. Yes, Brainiac is trying to collect cities on Earth. He has a very high level of technology and can create complex mechanical devices and weapons, and can even control and transform the entire planet. His equipment and technology enable him to move and fight freely in the universe. This kind of enemy is not something that the children of Hogwarts can deal with. Peter was a little speechless about Raven's mess. His eldest daughter was really bold and daring. He thought that Raven was just talking about establishing the Raven Society, but he didn't expect that she really did it. And she also brought this group of people from Hogwarts here. It seems that I have to give this disorderly daughter a good scolding in the future. Learning from the Order of the Phoenix founded by Harry, it is enough to fight against enemies of Voldemort's level in the Hogwarts world, and there is also a battle with Brainiac. The two are not of the same difficulty. He is really afraid that someone will die here. Mr. Pedraic, he was talking to Professor Lupin, and Luna came over, blinking her curious eyes, and asked Peter, can you deal with this alien called Brainiac? I don't know. Peter shook his head and said to her, but I think it shouldn't be difficult. As he spoke, he looked at the skeleton ship in the distance. Because Brainiac has collected the technologies of many civilizations in the universe, but he doesn't know much about magic. Coincidentally, I know some magic. Cool. Luna looked at Peter with admiration and said excitedly, just like you, sir, dealt with a group of vampires. I've read your story in the best-selling book, Mr. Pedraic. If you were my father, I would put a lion head hat on you and cheer for you. Peter, after a moment of silence, he said to the other party, thank you, this girl does look a little crazy. He has no doubt that this girl will do such a weird thing. Because he remembered that in the Quidditch game, in order to show her support for Gryffindor, she made a hat specially, a lion head-shaped hat, as big as a real lion head, and wore it on her head precariously. Whenever Gryffindor scored a goal, her funny lion hat roared in the cheers of Gryffindor. Luna's exaggerated hat made a circle of empty seats on the surrounding lively stadium viewing stands, and no one wanted to approach her. After a cough, Peter changed the subject and asked Professor Lupin, Raven is on the mothership, right? He had just returned from Kandak to treat the injured Azu. He was quite surprised that Azu used the trident to break Brainiac's shield with the help of Black Adam. Although it seemed a little unreliable at ordinary times, it really played an important role at the critical moment. More importantly, Azu had the trident infused with the power of the Eternal Stone, and his strength was greatly enhanced. Now he didn't have to talk about going to Mount Targan and being a star spirit every day. Yes, Raven got on the skeleton ship. Professor Lupin didn't know that Peter was thinking about Azu in his mind, and his eyes were pointed at the skeleton ship in the sky. Inside the skeleton ship, Clark covered his injured chest and walked to Brainiac, who was lying on the ground unwillingly. He panted slightly and said to Raven, the attack on the ship weakened him. When we fought, I could feel him getting weaker. Batman, Kara and Injustice Superman also came over. Several people were a little surprised by Raven's arrival. Batman took out the isolator and pointed it at Brainiac. Great, it should be much easier to cut off his connection with his sub-bodies. After scanning Brainiac with the isolator, Batman used a wireless communication device to tell everyone on Earth who are still destroying Brainiac's sub-bodies, this is Batman. Brainiac has fallen. Lyra's words came from the communicator, I'm Lyra. The isolator worked. Batman. All the sub-bodies have stopped moving, great, we succeeded. Hearing Lyra's words, the unjust Superman next to him clenched his fist. Boom, as soon as he finished speaking, there was an explosion in the distance, and then the spaceship shook violently. What happened? Kara asked Bruce, standing unsteadily. Brainiac's brain is the CPU of the hull. Obviously he has no backup system. The skeleton ship fell from the sky while shaking violently. Deafening explosions continued to sound around. No. We can't let this spaceship be destroyed. The city model of Metropolis is still here, Bruce shouted to everyone while standing unsteadily. Seeing this, Injustice Superman immediately sat on the chair where Brainiac had sat before, holding the neural interfaces of the mechanical arms on both sides. Wait, seeing Injustice Superman trying to connect the neural interface of this spaceship, Bruce stopped him. Don't do that, Clark. Injustice Superman shook his head at him. You said that this ship is controlled by thought, but this might kill you. It doesn't matter. This looks like it's prepared for me. As he said that, he suddenly rushed the mechanical line that was pounding with blue current towards his head. Brainiac's neural interface twisted like a living thing and pierced into his temple, and spider-web-like blue blood vessels suddenly appeared under Superman's skin. Raven, Clark and Karen next to him were also stunned when they saw this scene. No, you can't control it. Batman's cape was swept wildly by the out-of-control gravity field, and he grabbed the equipment next to him to stabilize his body. The red line representing the brainwaves of Injustice Superman on the holographic screen was jumping wildly. After the Injustice Superman was connected to the brain neural interface, he let out a roar between a human roar and a machine hum, and the heat vision bursting from his pupils swept across the bulkhead uncontrollably. The entire ship made a metallic whine like a dying beast. I won't let the same thing happen again. With every word Superman said, fluorescent energy liquid overflowed from the neural interfaces on both sides. His cape was ignited by the energy overflowing from the neural interface. The burning cloth was quickly swept away in the weightless cabin. Bruce shouted at him, "Hold on. Build a bridge and let the hull drive freely." Clark, sitting on the throne, Injustice Superman gritted his teeth, endured the strong mental shock, and burst out words from his mouth. "I'm trying." In the rapidly falling spaceship, Clark looked at the city below that was getting closer and closer. Worried that Injustice Superman could not control him, he whooshed out of the cabin and prepared to tow the falling spaceship. Just as he was about to stretch out his arms to hold the falling skeleton ship, the spaceship let out a heavy whining and finally stopped in midair. Inside the spaceship cabin, Bruce breathed a sigh of relief as he looked at the Injustice Superman who had stopped the spaceship, gasping for breath, with a mechanical interface on his head. "Okay, Clark, you did it." Bruce walked up to him and said, "Wait, I'll get you down right away." "No, not yet." He gasped hard and said to Bruce, "Metropolis, I have to restore it." The Kryptonian's blood boiled in the nerve conduit. Injustice Superman sat on the throne in the center, like a mechanical Christ nailed to the cross. The remaining engines of the spaceship wailed. The model of Metropolis began to decompress 3,000 feet above the ground. The light blue data stream was like an inverted galaxy, and the steel skeleton made a buzzing sound as it grew in the waterfall of light. Bruce was shocked to see Metropolis restored. Injustice Superman groaned in pain, his blue pupils focused on a certain point of nothingness, and dazzling sparks burst out of the neural interface. The neural catheter on Superman's forehead began to ooze fluorescent blue liquid. Restoring the model of Metropolis that had been absorbed into the spacecraft put his mind under great pressure. Kara stood in front of the virtual screen, looking at the disappeared city buildings, which were completely restored one by one, with a look of shock on her face. Raven and Clark looked at each other. Injustice Superman really did it. Plop! After Metropolis was completely restored, Superman fell down from the chair with a plop. Coincidentally, the people who had destroyed the subbody on Earth also rushed over. Peter took Lupin, Luna and Malfoy, Hermione and Fleur, Azu and others flew onto the ship. Lyra and Boom, V, Star-Lord, Horus and others also followed closely. Injustice Wonder Woman, Black Adam, and Aquaman on Injustice Superman's side also quickly rushed to Superman's side. Aquaman looked at Injustice Superman who stood up and said to him, "I thought it was too late, but I didn't expect it to succeed. We have thwarted Brainiac's conspiracy." Injustice Superman shook his head. "No, not yet. I failed to save everyone." Batman looked at the virtual screen and said to everyone, "Some cities are still trapped in the model, and some have been deleted from the hull. The data of Coast City has not been restored." Hearing that Coast City has not been restored, Green Lantern showed a worried expression on his face, and asked Injustice Superman, "Clark, you can save Coast City, right?" Superman showed an apologetic expression on his face. "Sorry, Hal." Chapter 781, The Reemergence of Injustice Superman. Wonder Woman, looking at Brainiac who was still conscious on the ground, gritted her teeth and said, "It's all this guy's fault. No world should suffer this kind of suffering. Krypton is like this, and so is Earth." Superman, on the other hand, walked directly towards Brainiac, ready to kill this guy completely. Seeing the aggressive behavior of Superman, Bruce immediately stepped forward to stop him. "No, Clark, even if I agree to kill him, you can't kill him. We need him alive to save all our cities. We don't need him," Superman said to Bruce with an angry expression. "As long as we spend more time, and with the help of Cyborg, this ship will surrender to me," Bruce frowned and said, "or we may lose more cities." Looking at the two people arguing, everyone in the spaceship had different expressions. Luna, who didn't understand the situation, stood beside Peter and held one of his hands tightly. Before Boom Boom next to him had time to confide his thoughts to his father, his position was taken by a crazy girl who came from nowhere, and the expression on her face was very indignant. Luna now has messy, dirty, waist-length golden hair, very light eyebrows, and bulging eyes, which makes her always look surprised. She puts her wand behind her left ear and wears a necklace made of butterbeer corks, which makes her look like a crazy girl. What makes Bomb speechless is that Luna wears a skeleton robot head on her head, which she picked up from somewhere. The skeleton robot head was blown away in the explosion and only a shell was left. She wore it on her head precariously, which looked both weird and funny. Malfoy and Pansy Parkinson carefully hid behind Raven and looked at the superheroes in the spaceship. The two wizards felt that everyone here was not a simple character. Especially the two who were arguing. On the other side, Azu kept his eyes on Injustice Superman. He held the trident in his hand, and his power at this time was incomparable. He believed that if Injustice Superman did something wrong, he could kill him without his father's help. Flash saw the two arguing and couldn't help but said, "Hey, I think Bruce is right." Raven agreed with Flash. "Yes, we still need Brainiac, so we can't kill him." Aquaman had a different opinion. "What we can be sure of is that Brainiac puts everyone in danger." Bruce shook his head and said to Aquaman, "It won't be that simple." "Yes, it's that simple," a voice suddenly interrupted Bruce. Injustice Superman said to him in a fierce tone, "How many more people will die before you can accept that some lives need to be taken away?" Before Superman finished speaking, Bruce suddenly swung out the dagger that he had prepared at some point. The golden dagger swish passed through Injustice Superman's shoulder. Superman, who felt weak, fell to the ground with a thump. He was a little bit unbelievable, and reached out to touch the wound, and found that his hand was covered with blood. "My power, what's wrong with you?" Bruce held the golden dagger, shook his head and said to Injustice Superman, "This is golden kryptonite, a gift prepared by Firestorm." Peter, who had been a bystander, was surprised to see Bruce, who did not follow the moral code of martial arts, take the lead. Golden kryptonite. He remembered that unlike other types of kryptonite, which had a temporary effect on Kryptonians, golden kryptonite could destroy the ability of Kryptonians to process yellow sunlight, thereby permanently eliminating the ability of Kryptonians. Moreover, the harm of golden kryptonite was hereditary. Usually, the descendants of Kryptonians irradiated by golden kryptonite also often lost the ability to absorb yellow sunlight and have superpowers. Sometimes golden kryptonite also showed the effect of depriving Kryptonians of their memories. Kryptonian criminals who came to the Phantom Zone of the Earth forgot their identities and the purpose of coming to Earth because they were irradiated by golden kryptonite. Batman's sudden action also shocked the other superheroes. Clark looked at Batman in shock. Didn't they fight side by side before? Why did he suddenly attack his comrades without mercy? Wanda and Gwen, who had just entered the ship, were also shocked when they saw Bruce suddenly attacking Superman. Is the Batman of this world so decisive? Raven, who was standing by, understood better. You can't be soft-hearted when dealing with Superman. It was because of his soft-heartedness that Injustice Batman had his back broken by Superman. Seeing Injustice Superman fall to the ground, Wonder Woman shouted at him, "Stand up, Carl." Bruce warned him, "No, don't stand up, Clark, or you will lose your power forever." "No. Who do you think you are?" "Bruce Wayne," Superman roared, stood up and rushed towards Bruce. There was a dull bang. The metal ground sank under the Kryptonian's fist, and the crisp sound of nearby metal breaking mixed with the alarm. Bruce dodged Superman's action. Superman's movements were obviously much slower. The toxins of the golden kryptonite made him feel like swallowing glass shards every time he breathed. He grabbed the hydraulic pipe that Batman threw at him with his backhand, and the iron sheet groaned in the wrestling between the two. A buzzing sound rang in Superman's ears, and the bat-shaped gauntlet stabbed his pubic bone. Then Superman roared and headbutted Bruce. Bruce dodged the attack and quickly grabbed Superman's wrist. The two rolled to the ground. As the two bodies hit the metal ground, the Kryptonian smashed Bruce's mask with the back of his head. Plexiglass shards flew in the air. Bruce grabbed Superman and they rolled through the deformed hatch to the deck. Superman's thumb dug into the seam of the armor between Bruce's collarbone, and blood gushed from the cracks in the Kevlar fiber. The two men bit like two wounded wolves, and each punch was full of anger and catharsis. When Batman's knee hit Superman's kryptonite wound for the third time, Superman finally grabbed the back of his neck and slammed the black head into the leaking energy tank. Bang! Amidst the violent crash, Bruce turned over in the cold mist of liquid nitrogen, and was thrown out by Clark, who grabbed his throat. His combat boots plowed sparks on the alloy floor. Bruce gritted his teeth and reacted, touched the golden kryptonite dagger, and stabbed it into Superman's thigh with his backhand. Clark's roar shook off the emergency light tube above his head. In the rain of glass, the two punched at the same time. Batman's uppercut hit the temple, and Superman's swinging fist grazed Batman's cheek. With a bang, the two people who were knocked out rolled and fell to the ground. Enough. Superman struggled to get up from the ground and stop Wonder Woman and Black Adam, who wanted to rush up to help. Bruce and Padraic. Superman gritted his teeth and cast his eyes on Peter. You should understand the meaning of what I'm doing. Someone in this world has to sacrifice in order to avoid more people from sacrificing. Brainiac is like this, he must die, and then let me save everything. Peter looked at this guy pointing his spear at himself and asked him, do you think you can save everything, save the world? You know how many crises are waiting in the parallel universe. It's far from enough to rely on you alone, Clark, although he doesn't like to take sides and has no interest in killing Brainiac. But Peter can't support Superman. Standing on Superman's side, the Batman of this world is completely finished. He has no doubt that after Superman succeeds, he will turn the Injustice Bat into a mind-control doll. After all, this guy has accepted Brainiac's power. He also needs the power of the Injustice Batman. In addition, for the sake of Leela and Kara, he can't stand on Superman's side. Dad, Leela, who was standing behind Peter, stood out sadly and said to Superman, you said that you would be a person who yearns for peace. Why did you do this, Leela? Believe me, I can control everything. What after that? After controlling Brainiac's power, will you try to control the world? Leela asked with tears in her eyes. Lila, you said you like crime and punishment, right? Injustice. Superman took a deep breath and said to her, remember the Superman and ordinary man theory proposed by the protagonist, Raskolnikov? He believes that human beings are divided into two categories, Supermen and ordinary people. Supermen have special rights and can transcend the constraints of law and morality to achieve great goals and ideals, while ordinary people must abide by social norms and laws and cannot break through the established framework. Injustice. Superman looked at his daughter. Raskolnikov also used Napoleon as an example, believing that he pursued his goals through war and power without worrying about moral accusations and legal restrictions. When facing free will, humans must bear the corresponding responsibilities and consequences, but most of the time they are powerless. But I can achieve great goals and ideals and save the entire human race. They need my leadership, and this time Brainiac is the proof. After speaking to Leela, he looked at Kara, who was standing next to Peter, and said with some disappointment, Kara, you are obviously the one who wants to kill Brainiac the most, but I didn't expect you to betray me too. Kara took a few steps closer to Peter and looked at unjust Superman with unfamiliar eyes. Thank Rao, your father can't see you like this. When General Zod wanted to rule Krypton, Jor-El led the people to resist. This is your blood, this is you, Carl. You shouldn't be so extreme. What you should insist on is hope. Superman shook his head. No, you are wrong, Kara. If my father could be more like General Zod, he might be able to save Krypton. I will save the Earth. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 782, Azu vs. Injustice. Superman, Azu's Battle of Proof. Following Injustice Superman's words, the camps in the spaceship formed two distinct teams. One team stood behind Peter, and the other team stood behind Injustice Superman. Behind Injustice Superman stood Black Adam, Wonder Woman, and Aquaman. How? Injustice Superman didn't expect Green Lantern to also stand behind Peter and Batman. He asked in some confusion, why are you against me? Brainiac took away Coast City. Think about Carlo. Brainiac must pay for this. Facing Superman's questioning, Green Lantern shook his head and said, "No, Clark, no matter how angry I am, I can't bring Carlo here, just like you can't get Lois back. Give him to me." Azu interrupted the conversation between the two and stood up, smashing the trident heavily to the ground. Peter looked back at Luna and Lupin and other Hogwarts students, and said to Raven, take Luna and Malfoy away. Fleur and Hermione, wearing power armor, stood behind Peter and said, "We are here to help you." "Very good, Peter Patrick, our last fight is not over yet." Injustice looked at Peter. "Let's decide the winner here." Seeing that Injustice seemed to ignore him, Zoo was a little angry. With a bang, he rushed over, grabbed Injustice's body and slammed it into the ground. A meteor rushed towards Metropolis in the astonished sight of everyone. "Metropolis? Homelander? You are just a poor imitation of your father." Injustice tore off the damaged shoulder armor, and the muscle fibers shone in the sun. The wind pressure caused by his sprint overturned the nearby cars. The fist reflected in Zoo's pupils hid him in an instant. The moment the trident blocked, the shock wave shattered all the glass curtain walls in the nearby blocks. Zoo's fangs were bared, and the purple lightning suddenly burst out of the trident and entangled Superman's wrist. But the counterattack was even more fierce. With a bang, Superman's knee hit Zoo's chest. The dull thud was drowned out by the sonic boom. The impact carried the two men through a nearby building, and the steel bars in the concrete collapsed like melted chocolate. Bang! The two collided with each other and smashed into a nearby tunnel. The lightning released by Zoo's trident and the scarlet hot line shot on the tunnel. The granite layer melted into hot magma rain. Superman flew over and pulled Zoo's golden hair upwards. Every collision stirred up countless mud and fell. When the two broke through the ground and returned to Times Square, Zoo's battle suit was already tattered. Zoo spit out a mouthful of blood, foam and shame and anger. He didn't expect this guy to be so strong. Could it be because he absorbed Brainiac's energy? Zoo took a deep breath and stabbed the trident into the ground to release a ring-shaped thunderstorm. Dozens of purple lightning bolts formed a cage, and each lightning bolt left a scorch mark 2 meters deep on the ground. Superman's charging figure left an afterimage in the lightning net. Zoo looked at himself transforming into Thor, releasing thunder to bombard Superman, and a smug look flashed across his face. The moment the lightning cage shrank, Superman was heavily bombarded out, rolling and smashing on the ground. The bombarding lightning was refracted on the thunderstorm cloud, triggering a chain reaction. Countless buildings were lifted into the stratosphere by the blast, and the burning materials fell into the nearby river like doomsday fireworks. The river water vaporized the moment it came into contact with a high temperature, and the afterimages of the two people appeared in the steam cloud. With a bang, Zoo's trident finally found a flaw and pierced Superman's right chest, and the energy given by the eternal rock poured into his skin. Spiderweb-like purple lines lit up under the skin of Injustice Superman. He locked the halberd blade with his muscles, endured the pain, and slammed his fist into Zoo's nose. Zoo refused to give in, and the lightning instantly struck the opponent. The two entangled with each other and smashed into the ground crack that was 30 meters deep. The air was gushing out with heat waves. The red light in Superman's eye sockets suddenly shot out, and he instantly moved to Zoo's side, grabbed his ankle with his backhand and threw him to the ground. With a bang, a deafening sound rang out from the ground. "This is enough." Zoo's hot eyes forced the opponent to retreat, and he stood up and wiped the blood off his face. With a bang, he flew over and pressed Injustice Superman into the vault of the nearby Bank Reserve Bank. Countless gold bricks were shattered in the fight. The two rushed all the way from the bank vault to the ground. Although Zoo was infused with the power of the Eternal Rock at this time, he was still at a disadvantage against Superman, who absorbed Brainiac's energy. Bang! After dodging the lightning, Injustice Superman punched Zoo to the ground. The nearby buildings were rolled and smashed all the way. At this time, Flash and Kara also came to help. Kara and the Flash turned into 2 lightning bolts, rushing over from the left and right. Bang! Bang! Injustice stretched out his arms to block the two's attacks, and threw them to the ground with a bang. Kara staggered to her feet, covered her chest and said to him, "Carl, this is your friend." Injustice shook his head. "My friend should help me, not hinder me." Gritting his teeth, Kara roared and rushed towards her cousin. Injustice was not to be outdone, and the two rushed towards each other. With a bang, Injustice grabbed Kara's neck. Looking at Kara groaning in pain, he shook his head and threw Kara to a nearby building with a backhand. There was a bang sound. Seeing that Kara's attack was frustrated, the Flash turned into red lightning, flew over with a whoosh, and hit Superman's chin with a punch. Bang! 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 Then he used a set of lightning punches, hammering Superman's chest continuously. Superman, who felt a burst of pain, shot out a laser from his eyes. While forcing Flash back, he moved closer and punched Flash out. "It's all your fault, Barry, because of your betrayal. The regime collapsed." Superman looked at Barry lying on the ground and said angrily, "The regime collapsed, and we couldn't resist Brainiac's attack. You shouldn't be a coward." Flash stood up, holding his chest. "No, I was already a coward for not opposing you at the beginning, Clark. There won't be a second time." "Very good." Unjust Superman shot red light from his eyes and was about to attack Flash. Boom. The next second, there was a deafening explosion on the ground. Peter fell heavily from the sky to the ground, stood up and looked directly at Superman. "Your enemy is me, Clark. Will Mr. Padrick be okay?" Pansy asked Raven nervously. Raven is now leading the Hogwarts group to the Batcave. "No, I believe Dad," Raven bit her lip and said. "So, what happened?" Malfoy asked Raven curiously. "Mr. Padrick seems to have imprisoned Superman before." "Yes," Raven explained, "because of a tragedy. Superman fell into the Joker's conspiracy. Although he killed the Joker's goal was achieved. He gradually corrupted Superman, the strongest, most sunny, but also the simplest in the Justice League." Batman thought that the Joker's tricks would not succeed on Superman, but he was wrong. The Joker was still laughing wildly before he died, because he knew that the former role model had become a monster like himself, Raven said with a heavy heart. "What did he do?" Professor Lupin asked. With the support of Wonder Woman and others, Superman, who deeply questioned his beliefs, decided to use violence to promote so-called justice and peace and prevent the tragedy from happening again. He went deep into the depths of the war alone, captured the president of the military government, and delivered a speech at the United Nations General Assembly, demanding a comprehensive ceasefire worldwide, otherwise he would come forward to mediate. Atlantis, led by Aquaman, once rebelled against Superman, but was soon retaliated against. Superman and several other superheroes lifted the entire Atlantis from the bottom of the sea and threw it directly into the depths of the Sahara Desert. In order to protect his people, Aquaman, who had witnessed Superman's powerful strength, had no choice but to surrender. Pansy nodded. "Then I don't understand why Aquaman still supports Superman." Raven shook her head and continued. As the situation escalated, Superman became more and more paranoid and dictatorial. After a pause, Raven continued, "Dad told me that later, other superheroes either joined Superman because they admired his reputation and ability, or parted ways with him because of different ideas, and even caused their own destruction. Dick Grayson, the Nightwing, was accidentally killed by Robin Damian Wayne, who defected to Superman. Martian Manhunter was burned to ashes by Superman for trying to stop Wonder Woman. Shazam originally followed Superman, but after seeing Superman's true nature, he argued with him and was shot to death by heat rays." After listening to Raven's explanation, Pansy asked her, "Then Clark, will your brother become like him?" "I don't think so," Raven said in a firm tone. After Dad came, he was unstoppable and won battle after battle, defeating several powerful enemies, and finally confronted Injustice Superman. Injustice Superman was very angry and asked him why he wanted to stop him. He could clearly bring true peace to the world and prevent the tragedy that happened again, and Dad told him, "Is this the world that Lois really wants to see?" Finally, after a fierce battle, Superman was defeated and locked up in a special cell by Batman. "Before we went back, Clark said to Batman, 'Actually, I don't know if I would become like Superman if I went through everything he went through, but the difference between me and him is that I have two fathers, one on Earth.'" After saying this, Raven looked at everyone with a complicated mood, and suddenly found that one person was missing. "Wait, where's Luna?" Chapter 783, Father used a satellite to hit someone? Wait, where is Luna? Hermione suddenly discovered something very important. That is, Luna is missing. Malfoy and Professor Lupin looked at each other with surprise on their faces. No one noticed when Luna disappeared. "She is always like this, a crazy girl," Malfoy said to Raven with an indifferent expression. "When I first met her, I saw her looking at the Quibbler upside down. She told everyone that her father was the editor-in-chief of the magazine, although most people in the wizarding world thought that this magazine was rubbish, and her eyes are always looking blankly in the direction where there is no one, but she can know who is walking towards her behind her. She always likes to talk about things that are not related to the topic and say things that others don't like to hear. From the beginning, I didn't think that you should recruit such a guy, Raven. From the beginning, Malfoy didn't like crazy girls like Luna. He was also very dissatisfied with Raven for bringing Luna into the Raven Society. At least in his opinion, even Harry's more reliable than this crazy girl. Listening to Malfoy's seemingly dissatisfied complaints, Raven glared at her. After seeing Raven's gaze, Malfoy immediately shut up and became honest. At this time, Luna, who was being discussed by Raven and others, was hiding behind a group of ruined buildings. Wearing a skeleton robot mask on her head, she quietly poked her head out from behind the ruins and looked at Peter and Injustice Superman, who were in opposition to each other. Her carrot earrings curled and turned black in the residual heat of the surrounding air, and her silver-gray pupils reflected the surrounding broken walls. Well, Clark in this world seems to look better with a broken nose. Although I can't treat noses, I have treated several toes. Luna looked at Injustice Superman and muttered meaninglessly. Come on, Mr. Padraic, she quietly retracted her head and whispered. Hiding behind the ruins, Luna suddenly felt that Clark in this world was a bit like Fudge. She didn't like Fudge like her father. Her father also strongly supported the actions against the Ministry of Magic. He always said that he believed Fudge could do anything. For example, Fudge assassinated many goblins. Of course, Fudge also used the Department of Mysteries to develop terrible poisons and secretly drugged those who disagreed with him. And is a gush-getter. Mr. Clark in this world now seems to have assassinated many superheroes. On the battlefield secretly watched by Luna, Kara covered her shoulder and flew back from the exploding building. Carl, stop! Injustice Superman glanced at Peter and deliberately avoided looking at Kara's eyes. I can't just forgive you this time, Kara. Kara looked at her cousin painfully. You can still turn back, Carl. I know that since you lost Lois, you are afraid of losing someone around you again. Listening to the conversation between the two, Luna whispered to herself in her heart, my mother told me that things that are lost will always come back. Injustice Superman listened to Kara's words and shook his head with a serious face. I was very scared, Kara, afraid that others would be afraid of me because they lost my power, afraid that I would hurt others if I was not careful. I have been restraining myself all my life. My fear made me lose Lois, so I will never hold back again. Peter, who was standing next to him, shook his head at the paranoid unjust Superman. No, Clark. This is not a matter of restraint, you are just weak and afraid. With a bang, while Peter was speaking, Zoo rushed out of the ruins with a dusty face. Zoo, who was beaten up for his big talk, looked at Peter embarrassedly. Then he wiped the dust off his face, stood beside Peter, and pretended that what happened just now had not happened at all. Did you know, Clark, that John has an isotope in a parallel world? He has a body of steel, is extremely strong, can fly, and his eyes can shoot lasers. On the surface, he is a superhero admired by everyone, but behind the scenes, he is a villain who does all kinds of evil. Once, Homelander went to rescue a plane. In order to cover up his mistakes and maintain his glorious image, Homelander insured the plane and let hundreds of passengers sink into the sea, leaving no evidence. Although he did all kinds of evil, he was also afraid. The only thing he was afraid of was that people would no longer love him. Azu, who was standing next to him, saw Peter talking about himself in the world of black robes, coughed, and said to Peter, I think we can skip this topic, Dad. Peter ignored him and continued to say to Injustice Superman, you are the same as him, Clark. You are all cowards and are all afraid. If the original purpose of establishing totalitarianism is to wipe out evil, then the death of Green Arrow and the execution of Shazam would be completely unjust. Clark, you can't accept the opposition voices in your own camp. You are afraid that you will no longer be safe. Shut up. Injustice Superman, who was completely enraged by Peter, raised his fist and rushed towards Peter. The sonic boom of Superman's fist blew away the glass curtain wall of the nearby block. Facing the sudden attack of Superman, Peter stretched out his fist to resist the opponent's attack. With a bang, Peter plowed a 100-meter gully on the asphalt road. Peter's face was reflected in Superman's pupils, and he roared and continued to rush towards Peter. Injustice Superman, who had merged with Brainiac's energy, was faster than before. With a bang, his left hook flew past Peter's jaw. The detonation formed by compressed air destroyed the glass of the building behind him. Peter grabbed his retreating wrist and broke the speed of sound at the moment of over-the-shoulder throw. With a bang, the two crashed into the nearby building underground. Facing the fierce attack of Injustice Superman, Peter quickly released the Silver God energy with both hands. Bang! Injustice Superman was hit hard and flew out. Taking advantage of the moment when Injustice Superman rushed into the sky, Peter accelerated, grabbed Injustice Superman's golden hair and crashed into the steel cables on the bridge. With a bang, Injustice Superman's head crashed heavily into the bridge. The thumb-thick steel cables broke one after another, and the broken steel wires left fine marks on his skin. Injustice Superman suddenly turned over and hung upside down, clamped Peter's waist and abdomen with his legs, and smashed into the bridge deck. Bang! The concrete bridge piers turned into powder in the impact, and a 100-meter-high water wall exploded on the water's surface. Before the water mist dissipated, Peter's divine energy shot out and hit Injustice Superman's chest with a bang. Injustice Superman's knuckles twisted under the reaction force, and he roared in anger as he was hit. Ah! He roared and pushed forward with both hands. In an instant, countless mechanical bodies above his head smashed towards Peter. At the same time, dark red energy shot out of his eyes. He had already controlled Brainiac's energy, and his eyes shot out dark red-hot eyes, and he rushed towards Peter fiercely. Peter, who was attacked from both sides, had no choice but to release the divine energy that was controlling Injustice Superman. Seeing Peter retreat, Zhu immediately rushed forward with a trident. Boom! With a burst of air, Injustice Superman rushed in front of Zhu. At this time, his uniform had changed to a black and red uniform. The black mechanical uniform was flowing with a dark red glow. Injustice Superman's eyes also turned dark red at this time. With a bang, Injustice Superman instantly knocked Zhu out and then grabbed Zhu's ankle. The force of the spin and swing plowed a crater-like gully in the ruins of Metropolis. Zhu kept breaking, and the muscle fibers that were exerting the force made a buzzing sound. Kara flew over, grabbed the overturned truck and smashed it down. Injustice Superman rushed towards several tons of steel, and the truck broke into two pieces in the shock wave of the two people's bombardment. Zhu's trident suddenly pierced out from the steel waist. Injustice was a little late in dodging the blow, and a bolt of lightning instantly struck him. Enduring the pain, he grabbed the opponent's wrist and bent it back, with a loud sound of bone cracking. The two men crashed into the cooling tower of a nearby power station during the fight, and the reinforced concrete shell shattered like an eggshell. With a boom, Injustice got up first and rushed towards Zhu. His throat lock was forced back by the heat vision, and Injustice took the opportunity to knee Zhu's spleen, causing a shock wave that shattered the glass of the building for several kilometers. Zhu took Injustice's straight punch to his heart, and took the opportunity to grab the cross-armor to lift the two off the ground, rolling in the stratosphere and dragging them out of the night sky. The two men continued to fight each other in the air, and the two bodies rushed up like meteors. Luna, hiding in the ruins, looked at the scene in front of her in shock. She didn't expect a battle between superheroes to be so fierce and incredible. Before, she had always thought that the so-called superheroes were more about helping those in need. But now it seems that when these superheroes fight among themselves, they have incredible destructive power. Well, I have to cheer for Mr. Padrick now. Luna held her hands and prayed for the two of them. Zizzy, the more powerful heat vision released by Injustice Superman instantly hit Azu in the air. Azu, who did not react, rolled and fell to the ground. Peter, who saw this scene, naturally would not ignore it. Peter used the energy of the gods to create a huge baseball glove. While catching Azu, he used the power of rubies in both hands to create satellites of Titan in the Marvel world. In the sky, Injustice Superman only heard the sound of wind. He looked up and saw several satellites falling towards him. Bang! Injustice Superman was hit by a satellite from a high altitude and hit the ground heavily. Countless buildings collapsed, deafening sounds rang around, and pungent dust quickly spread. As he looked up, panting as he watched Peter use a satellite to hit Injustice Superman, he forgot the pain in his body and showed a surprised expression on his face. Why does this scene seem familiar? Chapter 784 Batman and Superman, because their understanding of justice never really intersects. On the other side, Bruce handed over Black Adam, Aquaman, Wonder Woman and other enemies on the side of the unjust Superman to Lyra, Clark, Wanda, Gwen and others, and quickly rushed to the Batcave. The dripping sound in the Batcave suddenly stopped. When Bruce Wayne's boots rolled over the last stone step, the entire cave lit up with a blood-red warning light at the same time. It happened that Raven and the people of the Raven Order also rushed to the Batcave at this time. Seeing Bruce appear, Raven breathed a sigh of relief and walked towards him quickly. "Batman, what's the situation outside now?" Raven asked Batman worriedly. "Are Dad and the others okay? Peter is fighting with Clark now. I need to help them," Batman said in a deep voice, and walked quickly to the inside of the Batcave. Raven and Professor Lupin looked at each other and followed Batman's footsteps. "I thought the Golden Dagger and Kryptonite could seriously injure him, but I was wrong," Bruce said to Raven as he walked. "His energy has been enhanced by more than one dimension, and Brainiac's mind matrix has given him terrifying predictive ability. In addition, he now controls Brother Eye and all electronic communications." As the two talked, Batman walked to the center of the Batcave. The main computer array dozens of meters high began to self-check, and the fluorescent blue laser grid swept across Batman's face. "Identity confirmed," the mechanically synthesized electronic sound echoed in the dome. Then a box emitting cold air slowly rose from the ground. The sound of air pressure, when the spinal corrector popped out, was like the breath of a giant dragon. Bruce leaned back and sank into the support frame, and the titanium alloy probe pierced the spinal nerve node at the same time. Cold sweat instantly dripped down his temples. Then he raised his right arm and let the arm guard of the Superman armor that had been prepared long ago fit his arm. Neural connection completion. 87% pain shielding has been activated, the electronic sound rang. Bruce raised his right hand in severe pain, and his fingers were immediately surrounded by armor. When the last piece of neck armor was buckled, Bruce completed the last joint lubrication with a click sound, and the claw blades popped out of the hand armor, making a crisp sound. "I am revenge." The light in the whole cave suddenly went out. Only a pair of blood-red eyepieces were left floating in the darkness, like the pupils of a demon that had been gouged out. Seeing Batman put on a cool uniform in a handsome posture, Raven, Malfoy and others were stunned for a moment. This is, looking at Batman in a new uniform, Raven opened her mouth in surprise. "Is this set of movements so handsome? I have to suggest to my father that he should be so handsome next time he changes his clothes. This is the armor I prepared specifically for Clark. I know that when I let him out, there will definitely be such a day." Bruce's hoarse voice sounded. "Now Clark is still fighting Peter and Metropolis. I have to go." Seeing Injustice Batman leaving, Raven immediately shouted to him, "Wait, I'll go with you." "And us?" Pansy Parkinson, Draco Malfoy, Blaise Zabini and others stood up. Lupin looked at his students who all stood up, and could only say helplessly, "And me?" Raven and others took the Batfighter and quickly rushed to Metropolis. On the plane, Raven asked Batman with a complicated expression, "I don't understand. Did Superman turn over a new leaf? Especially after having a daughter like Layla, I thought he would choose to be a good person, and Dad also believed that he would be a good person." "No, you are wrong, Raven," Bruce said to her in a deep voice. "This is not a wrong or right thing. These are two concepts." "I know, Raven. Your father thinks that my means of resistance are indecisive. I refuse to use lethal force and even rely on your assistance in the parallel universe, which makes the resistance inefficient. However, this persistence is the core of my philosophy. Once Clark's method is adopted, it means admitting that violence is the only way to solve the problem." Bruce looked into Raven's eyes and said slowly, "Your father is an anarchist. He doesn't even want to care about these things. I don't think his idea is wrong, because he loves you. He regards you, his children, as the most important things, and he doesn't care about anything else. But Clark's philosophy, now that it has been formed, cannot be changed. Moreover, this philosophy is not only but has begun to affect many people. At first, I tried to awaken his conscience by exposing his crimes, but Clark instead used the excuse of 'you never understood my pain' to deepen the opposition. Therefore, even during the time when Clark was imprisoned, I was still wary of his influence, because Clark's ideas have penetrated into the hearts of some heroes, such as Wonder Woman, and the public, forming a new soil for authoritarianism." Listening to Bruce's words, Raven, Lupin, Pansy and others also fell silent. Lupin suddenly thought of Voldemort. Speaking of which, the two have fatal similarities. Lupin leaned against a bulkhead and said to the few people, "I know, just like Voldemort, both of them have extreme ideals and try to change the world by force. Voldemort wants to purify the magical world and eliminate Muggle-born wizards. Superman wants to establish a global regime to fight violence with violence. They both don't trust the existing system and think their way is more effective. They both have similar desires for power and control. Voldemort rules through fear and terror, and his Death Eaters must obey him absolutely. Superman uses force to suppress opponents and even transform the Earth's environment. They both emphasize absolute control and do not tolerate dissent. Batman listened to Lupin's lecture and nodded slightly. He looked at the city approaching in the distance and said to everyone, "None of us want to get to this point." Clark initially did it in the name of protecting the world, but gradually became addicted to the pleasure of controlling everything. He imprisoned opponents in the Phantom Zone and transformed the Earth's environment to suit his will. He said he wanted to kill Brainiac. The reason why I strongly opposed it is because I know he has no bottom line. Next, he will merge with Brainiac and treat the Earth as his private property, eavesdropping on and restraining the people. I believe he will do it. Raven frowned and asked Batman, "Hasn't Leela and Kara awakened his family affection?" "Maybe he has awakened it, and maybe he has reflected on it. I believe he really loves Leela, but I think he now blames everything more on necessary evil." Batman said to the few people with a serious expression, "We will eventually get to this point because the essence is the irreconcilability of two values. Clark represents the arrogance of divinity trying to reshape the world with absolute power, and I stick to the complexity of humanity acknowledging fragility and contradictions, but refusing to give up the right to free choice." Pansy asked curiously, "Is it possible for Superman to turn over a new leaf?" Batman shook his head. "I don't know. He is now deeply trapped in the quagmire of self-rationalization. Perhaps his reflection only stays at the grief of losing Lois, rather than criticizing the abuse of power." Raven looked at Batman with a complicated expression, and suddenly understood what her father said before. The brightest hero fell into the darkest tyrant, and the former best friend became an eternal enemy, all because their understanding of justice never really intersected. "I wonder what justice my father understands?" She thought about it, and perhaps her understanding of justice was different from Batman's. Her justice didn't seem to be the responsibility and obligation that Batman said. Her justice was only related to her father. If her father was gone, the justice she insisted on would collapse, and she would collapse like Injustice Superman. Boom! The ground made a deafening sound, and Injustice Superman, who was hit to the ground by the satellite, shook away the things around him and slowly stood up. Injustice Superman, who was about to settle accounts with Peter, suddenly heard a whistling sound in the air. A bat fighter flew over, and then a figure fell heavily to the ground. Batman, wearing a bloated armor, stood in front of Injustice Superman. "Superman, your war is over?" Looking at his familiar old friend, Injustice Superman said with a complicated expression, "Fighting side by side with you has brought me back to the past, but I guess we all know that this will be the ending." Batman shook his head, and suddenly his mood became extremely heavy. "Do you remember the night you told me that Lois was pregnant?" he asked Superman. Superman nodded. "I remember that you knew it before I opened my mouth." "How did you know I wanted to talk about Lois?" "Because you smiled like a fool." Bruce recalled this scene and lowered his head. "Yes, this memory is so beautiful." Injustice Superman looked into his eyes. "I hope we can have this scene again in the next life." Batman was silent for a moment. "I miss us back then." "Me too." As soon as Injustice Superman finished speaking, he activated his super speed and rushed over with a punch to knock Bruce, who was wearing the anti-Superman armor, away. Bruce, wearing the armor, did not fly out, but dragged on the ground for a distance before standing up. Injustice Superman watched Bruce stand up and shook his head. "Give up, Bruce. You know you can't beat me. You and everyone else know that I won't give up," Batman said, and rushed towards Superman. His knee strike was stopped by Superman's elbow strike, and the severe pain from his sheen made his pupils shrink suddenly. Superman took the opportunity to twist Bruce's wrist and bend it back, and the two crashed into the collapsing building. The concrete fragments exploded like shotgun shells, and Batman's collarbone was hit by Superman's bang punch, and he rolled out. "You are still so stubborn. I just want to kill Brainiac." Bruce, unjust Superman glanced at Peter, Zoo, Kara, and Raven who were walking over, and said sternly, "What happens after that?" Chapter 785, The Last Leela Supergirl. Injustice Superman did not answer this question, but shook his head at Bruce and said, "I will not let Brainiac or such guys attack the Earth again." Bruce stood up from the ground staggeringly. "Then I am the next one." "Bruce, I should have killed you many years ago. It would be much easier." Facing Injustice Superman at this time, Bruce clenched his fists. "Then do it, Clark. Kill me. Let me know what a villain is." Looking at Bruce, who made him extremely annoyed, Injustice Superman finally did not shoot out the heat vision. He gritted his teeth and looked at Peter. "Peter, we don't have to go this far. For Leela." "Leela." Before Peter could speak, Raven looked at him angrily. Do you still have the nerve to talk about Leela? Leela trusted you so much, and you broke her dream with your own hands. Is there anything more cruel in this world than this?" Listening to Raven's words, Superman suddenly fell into a dazed mood. He broke Leela's dream himself? Yes, he had a dream. He dreamed of the Joker's conspiracy. In the dream, Louise was not dead, and Batman's timely reminder made him sober. The angry Batman punched the Joker's mouth crooked, but the Joker still smiled evilly. This arrogant madman had no emotions, and the only thing he had was pure malice. Louise's awakening made him feel relieved. She and the child were fine. This made him very happy. He wanted to deal with the captured Joker himself, but Batman refused. Batman's eyes were 10 times more fierce than before, as if he had made up his mind. When the Joker said that he liked to play with Batman's friends, and when Superman's child was born, the child's screaming method, Batman could no longer tolerate the Joker's provocation. He broke the Joker's neck. Batman killed people for himself and his child. After killing the Joker, Batman drove the Batmobile directly to the police station and turned himself in. Everything was going well, and his child was born, a girl. Louise gave him a nice name, Leela. Leela, this name, he whispered thousands of times in his dreams. Lyra's Kryptonian uniform was sewn by Lois, and the S logo on her chest has a softer arc when she ran. The super speed given by the Kryptonian gene made her like a flash of lightning, but her footsteps were deliberately light so as not to crush the wildflowers. Excited, I couldn't wait to go to the prison to tell Batman the happy news. When I asked Batman why he killed the Joker, Batman said it was all for Superman. To prevent the Joker from harming his friends and no one else. Even if killing violated Batman's creed. Time passed quickly. My daughter grew up slowly, from the first time she spoke, the first time she walked, to the first time she flew. In the flying class, when the two of them floated in the air together, Lyra's cape would wrap around his wrist. She always deliberately fell when she was still a few meters from the ground, enjoying the embrace of her father that flashed in an instant. This trust game was repeated thousands of times, and every time my muscle memory would tremble. In reality, he had caught a nuclear bomb, but he couldn't catch Lois. At night, Lyra curled up in front of the fireplace, and the flames projected a picture of a happy family. Sitting in front of the fireplace, he told his daughter Leela about his desire for peace, hoping that she would become a Superman who could help the world peace with her own strength. At that time, the only hope of Leela in the dream was to promote the peace of the whole world with her own efforts. Everything was as beautiful as a dream. I just protect her. You should understand, Peter, this is a father's wish. If there is another invasion by Brainiac next time, only in this way can I protect Leela, so that she will not be hurt. After speaking to Peter, Injustice Superman rushed over with a bang. When Peter's knuckles collided with Injustice Superman's fist, it was not the sound of bone cracking that burst out, but the scream of space tearing. Injustice Superman, who had merged with Brainiac, had a liquid luster flowing on his facial skin, and nano-arms swarmed out of the sunken wound. While instantly repairing the wound, he backhanded an elbow to hit Peter's liver. At the same time, Kara rushed over and punched Superman's head with a roar. Too slow, Injustice Superman's voice was indifferent, and his pupils shot red light, instantly knocking Kara away. Kara rolled out before she landed on the ground, but she was entangled by the mechanical chain that suddenly materialized. Brainiac's information technology was released by him. Peter's expression became a little serious when he saw this scene. This guy is now equivalent to Superman plus Brainiac, and his strength should not be underestimated. Peter bent his knees to shatter the restraints, and the ground collapsed radially. The trajectory of the sprint caused a huge sonic boom. The afterimage of the previous second was still in front of the ruins of the collapsed building, and the next second Peter's real body flashed behind Injustice Superman. A bombardment of divine energy smashed the opponent into a depth of dozens of meters underground. The hissing sound of flesh and metal sounded. Soon Injustice Superman broke out of the ground, and the S symbol on his chest had been twisted into the totem of Brainiac. Superman's right arm fiercely blocked the lightning released by Zoo. Then he quickly turned around and faced Batman wearing the Hell Armor. The Hell Armor modified by Batman is designed to fight Superman. This anti-Superman armor has the most advanced electronic technology equipment and can fly. The user will gain powerful strength and endurance that is not inferior to Superman, as well as super speed ability like the Flash. The armor's shell and cape can change shape at will according to the user's will, just like the Green Lantern ring, and even separate. It also has the ability to radiate energy and attack and become invisible. In addition, although the armor itself has energy reserves, once the energy is exhausted, the armor will absorb the user's own metabolism to provide it with power, and long-term use will corrode the user's body. In simple terms, this set of armor will threaten the user's life. The exhaustion of the armor's energy means that the user will drive it at the cost of death. Bang! 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 The two completed countless attacks and defenses in 1/1000th of a second. Bruce's left hook penetrated a shield, but the energy in the opponent's hand was released at the moment of contact with the chin of the Injustice Superman. Bang! The impact instantly knocked Bruce out. The chasing Injustice Superman pierced the Hell Armor Batman's battlesuit with his knuckles. He grabbed the other's raised chin and blasted out the face that made him not know whether it was hatred or other emotions. As Batman was thrown out, the concrete load-bearing columns of the nearby buildings broke one after another like chocolate bars. Are you still holding on to that ridiculous bottom line? Then Injustice Superman spun in the air, grabbed Batman's armor, and dragged him out. The two steel bodies crashed through the skyscraper, and the glass exploded into purple fire rain in the supersonic friction. Injustice Superman grabbed Hell Batman's throat with his backhand, and his retina glowed with a burning red light. Look at this world. Bruce, Injustice Superman finally did not shoot out the heat vision, but roared and hit Batman with his forehead. With a bang, Batman hit the ground heavily, and the moment the crater was formed, the road rolled up like a wave. On the other side, Raven joined the battlefield and released purple-black magic energy, wrapping around Injustice Superman. Creating an energy shield to resist the magic impact, Injustice Superman moved in front of Kara in an instant. With a dull bang, Injustice Superman's knee hit Kara's abdomen and crashed through the stratosphere. As the two rolled in the thin atmosphere, Kara stabilized her body and shot out heat vision. The faster Superman shot out dark red heat vision, which suddenly hit Kara even faster. At the critical moment, Peter flew into the sky, stood in front of Kara, and stretched out his hand to block the impact of the heat vision. At the same time, Luna, Malfoy and others on the battlefield below looked up and stared blankly at the battle of several superhumans. Luna's mouth was slightly open. Is this the battle between adult superheroes? If Mr. Patrick was in the wizarding world, I'm afraid that even Headmaster Dumbledore would not be his opponent. Well, no wonder Minister Fudge is so afraid of him. Luna was lost in her wild thoughts below, and the battle between Peter and Injustice Superman in the sky became more intense. Bang! The two entangled with each other and rushed to the ground. The two hit each other, and their retreating feet plowed through the ground, and the asphalt road rolled like a fragile eggshell. The next second, Peter suddenly ducked and rushed forward, sending a burst of divine energy to the nose of Injustice Superman. He groaned in pain and quickly retreated. Peter took advantage of the situation to grab the opponent's golden hair and threw him into the ground with the force of his shoulder. Injustice Superman was thrown out and rushed out to hit the nearby power station. Superman's body rolled in the electric sparks. Peter rushed over in an instant, and his knees hit the opponent's liver continuously. Every time he hit, Superman groaned in pain. Superman roared, endured the pain, and released dark red-hot vision from his eyes, knocking Peter out. But at the same time, Peter's silver energy also knocked the opponent out. The ground seemed to be hit by a nuclear bomb, making a dull explosion. Injustice Superman stood up, panting heavily, and looked at Peter, who also stood up in the distance. His expression became a little ugly. At the same time, Raven, Kara, Batman, and Azu slowly flew in front of him. You can't defeat me, because I have merged the power of Brainiac. Even Peter, you can't defeat me. Raising his fist, Injustice Superman was about to continue. The next second, whoosh! Suddenly, a golden shadow flew over. The golden lasso of truth bound his body. The astonished Superman looked back and found that Layla, with tears on her face, was holding the lasso of truth, standing in the air and binding him tightly. Chapter 786, Father and Daughter Battle. The final outcome. Leela, Injustice Superman turned around and looked at Leela in shock, who tied herself up with a lasso of truth. Come back, Dad. We are here to bring hope to the human world, not fear. Superman looked at his daughter, who opposed him, shook his head and said disappointedly, I am giving you hope, Leela. No, we are human, not gods, Dad. From the very beginning, you have been hoping to become a god. God becomes a super ruler, from the beginning for justice, to order, for rule, and then living too long and becoming numb. In the end, The only pursuit is to use mortal obedience as motivation. That is not what we are pursuing in the end, Leela said to Superman with tears on her face. Do you remember what we said when we looked down at the Earth from the sky? Leela, with short black hair and blue eyes like clear blue crystals, said to Superman with tears in her eyes, I am a child of two worlds. We cannot allow the people on Earth to follow in our footsteps. I believe that if we unite, all of us can work together to save the world. We are pursuing peace, not ruling the world with violence. Leela's eyes were filled with tears. That may be just a dream, but for me, it is not a dream, because everything is so real. You and Mom, each of them is so real, and they are real to me. As Leela was talking, the people who had finished a battle on the ship also rushed back. Clark used special metal materials to tie up Wonder Woman. Wanda and Gwen, the two escorted Black Adam. Star-Lord and Horus, Hermione and Fleur, grabbed Aquaman and got off the ship. Boom, V and Quicksilver, Flash, Green Lantern, Catwoman and others also appeared one after another. After everyone arrived at the scene, they all looked at Injustice Superman with different expressions. Injustice Superman looked at his daughter with a complicated expression. They threaten our peace, Leela. Superman wanted to continue, but saw disappointment in Leela's pupils. Those eyes that stung him seemed to break into countless fragments, and each fragment reflected his somewhat unfamiliar appearance now. The daughter took a step back. Peace? Or your throne? Dad, you killed my dream, and Dad is in the dream crushed by you. Hearing Leela's words, Injustice Superman was finally touched. He opened his mouth and wanted to speak. No. Carl, you are not wrong. We are doing the right thing. They betrayed us. Wonder Woman saw that Superman seemed to want to give up the fight, so she shouted at him. Seeing that Wonder Woman was still so stubborn, Gwen, angry, shot out spider silk from her hand. With a bang, Wonder Woman, who was unable to react in time, had her mouth instantly blocked by the white sticky spider silk. With her mouth sealed, Unjust Wonder Woman made an unclear sound and glared at Gwen fiercely. Boom, who was next to her, saw Wonder Woman's dishonesty. She was a little angry and pulled the trigger of the grenade launcher with a bang, blasting Wonder Woman out. Diana, seeing that Diana was injured, Unjust Superman bang suddenly broke the lasso of truth that Lyra was controlling him. With a dull bang, the lasso of truth, a divine weapon, instantly broke into pieces. Seeing the lasso of truth out of control, Leela, with tears in her eyes, finally made up her mind. Bang, the 17-year-old girl rushed over in an instant, spun around and elbowed Injustice Superman in the ribs. With a dull thud, Superman was hit hard by Leela and flew out. Stop, Dad. Very good, Leela, let me see how much of Peter's ability you inherited. Injustice Superman quickly stood up from the ground, his eyes shot out heat vision, and attacked Leela. Leela jumped back to avoid the heat vision, and the dark red beam melted a building behind her into glass rain. You should stand on my side. You are my daughter. As he said this, he rushed towards Leela. Facing Injustice Superman's attack, Leela's speed tore through the sound barrier. With a boom, the shock wave of the collision between father and daughter shattered the glass of nearby buildings. The next second, Injustice Superman grabbed her wrist and pressed it to the ground, then threw her out. With a boom, the Kryptonian girl plowed a 100-meter gully on her back. Facing the attack of the charging Superman, Leela quickly turned over and stood up, kneeling and hiding her father's jaw. Not only did the master teach me this move, I learned this move from you. Leela turned over and jumped up. After repelling Superman, she grabbed the burning car next to her and threw it out. The fire stream enlarged in Superman's pupils, and was extinguished by his breath in an instant. Before the ashes fell, the girl's heel had already split his collarbone and blasted him out heavily. Injustice Superman staggered to his feet on the ground and faced Leela, who was flying over. With a whoosh, he grabbed his daughter's ankle and threw her towards the building behind him. The sound of the load-bearing column breaking was heard. Leela turned over in the rubble, and her hot eyes passed by her father's ears. There was a bang in the air, and the next moment Superman suddenly flashed, and his left hook pierced her blocking arm, and the force of hitting the shoulder blade made the air around him roar and explode. You're slowing down, Lila. Injustice Superman grabbed Lila's neck and lifted her up. Unexpectedly, as soon as he finished speaking, the girl twisted her legs around his right arm and bent it back. Lila took the opportunity to headbutt his nose and knocked him back with a bang. Lila wiped the blood from her forehead and rushed towards him with a whoosh. The two fought in the burning air, and each blow brought ripples of energy that shook the air. Stop it, Dad, Lila grabbed Superman's arm. "Think about what Mom would do if she knew you were like this." "Shut up." The heat vision bursting from Injustice Superman's eyes suddenly intensified and shot towards her fiercely. Lila rolled to dodge, and the beam pierced the ground. While the opponent shot out the heat vision, Lila gritted her teeth and gathered unprecedented energy at the tip of her fist. Bang! Rushing forward at a speed beyond her previous speed, Lila punched Superman in the chest. This blow shattered Injustice Superman's chest armor and blasted him into the almost ruined building. "You have tarnished all our beautiful memories, Dad." Lila flew to Superman in the ruins, suspended in the air, looking at him with disappointment. Injustice Superman staggered to his feet and prepared to fight back, but was knocked out again by Lila's heat vision. Facing Lila's fist, Injustice Superman quickly stood up, seized the flow of his daughter's punch, and threw her into the ground over his shoulder. The gushing groundwater evaporated before it hit the ground, and Lila's figure suddenly blurred in the white mist. Then, in Superman's astonished sight, he saw a residual image suddenly appear in front of him. Injustice Superman's pupils suddenly contracted, and he stretched out his arms to try to resist his daughter's attack. But the real fist came from above his head. Lila's full-strength palm knife was caught by her father with one hand, and with a bang, the shock wave turned the sand pit into a meteorite crater. Injustice Superman dug his fingers deep into his daughter's palm, and blood dripped on his hand. Seeing Lila's blood, his body slowed down. He was distracted for a moment and was hit by Lila's punch. The sand melted into glass beads in the high temperature, and Lila's fist fell with a bang. "This is for my mother." Lila was angry and hit Superman's cheek with her fist. "For the Master." Then she hit his sternum with an elbow. "This punch is for Batman." Finally, Lila's knee strike brought a sonic boom, and with a bang Superman was knocked out of the building. On the other side, Peter looked at Lila with a surprised expression and beat up the Injustice Superman with a father's death punch. He could see that Superman was definitely capable of defeating Lila. Unfortunately, Lila's fist had a special attack, and each punch had a fatal power against the Injustice Superman. Although he fought with his daughter, Superman still refused to kill this daughter who represented his beautiful hope. The Injustice Superman fell to the ground and stood up with a slight gasp. As a result, the moment he stood up, the black energy released by Raven turned into a rope and tied him up. At the same time, Wanda's crimson energy was released, which instantly controlled Superman's brain waves and thoughts. Trapped by devil magic, Superman endured the pain and fell to the ground with a thump. Wanda gritted her teeth, manipulated the crimson energy with both hands, and continuously increased the magic output. Superman tried to break free from Raven's control while gritted her teeth to resist Wanda's crimson magic control. But the chaos magic that had been integrated with the Dark God Book was more powerful than Superman could imagine. Endless sleepiness and mental fatigue came to him one after another. Chaos magic gradually corroded into his mind and affected his mind. Just when Superman could hardly hold on, Peter also took action. The power of the ruby was released by him, and the authority of the god of sleep was manifested in this world. Feeling a burst of sleepiness, he was unable to resist in the end, and finally closed his eyes and fell into coma. Watching the unjust Superman fall to the ground with a thump, Wanda released the chaos magic that controlled Superman's brain, and some of them were about to fall backwards. Peter moved to Wanda's side in an instant and helped Wanda, who fell to the ground. Quicksilver, who was preparing to help his sister, saw that Peter was faster than him, and looked at the Flash next to him with a complicated expression. "Well, although he is Quicksilver, he is just fast, but compared with Mr. Peter, his eyesight and speed are still much worse." Lila breathed a sigh of relief when she saw her father lying on the ground. She slowly flew to Peter, wiped the blood and tears mixed on her face, and showed Peter a bitter smile. "Master." Peter hugged his daughter Lila in his arms with some heartache, letting Lila's tears wet his chest. "Master, I couldn't save him." "No, you did a good job, Lila. It's not your fault." Peter patted Lila's black hair gently, looking at the ruins of the building complex with a heavy heart. Chapter 787 Luna Moonlight talks with Supergirl. The Injustice Superman who fell into deep sleep had a dream. It was a long dream that he couldn't let go of, but it was also reasonable. He dreamed that he succeeded. He defeated Peter Patrick and Batman, imprisoned his daughter and Kara, controlled Brainiac's power, and finally everything went as he wanted. Kara was imprisoned in the Red Sun prison. Kara, who was sitting inside with her knees hugged, heard footsteps. She stood up and looked outside, and saw the Injustice Superman wearing a black and dark red uniform, with dark red light in his eyes walking over. Looking at the somewhat unfamiliar cousin in front of her, Kara asked him in shock, "You merged Brainiac's spaceship?" "Carl, Brainiac is dead, just as I told you. The remaining cities have been restored, and the Earth is now at peace." Kara looked at him angrily. "Yes, they are now under your feet," Injustice Superman said to Kara on the other side of the cage. "I hope you can understand, Kara. I am building an army to protect the Earth. There are hundreds of millions of warriors trapped in Brainiac's collection, Kryptonians, Dexamians, and Xenians. I will have an army that can rival all the Lantern Ring legions." He paused and said to Kara, "And I hope you and Leela, we can lead them together." "No, absolutely impossible, Carl." Injustice Superman shook his head and said to him in a disappointed tone, "You'd better make the right choice, Kara, or I will help you choose." As he spoke, Kara saw a scene that frightened her. She covered her mouth and took a step back with horror and disbelief. In her terrified sight, dark red energy lines flowed on Bruce's body, dark red light flashed on his bat helmet, and his eyes emitted strange light. Batman at this moment was obviously controlled by Superman. "So, Kara, which one will you choose?" "No." After the battle, everyone looked at the messy scene with different emotions. Batman knelt on the ground, and his body couldn't support it and started coughing. Raven hurriedly supported him. "Are you okay, Bruce?" "Nothing, just a little overloaded." Bruce looked at the unconscious Superman and clenched his fists in pain. On the other side, after talking to Peter for a while, Leela found a deserted place. She wanted to be alone and quiet. "Miss Leela, what's wrong with you?" A floating voice like singing suddenly came from behind Leela. Leela turned around and saw Luna standing behind her with big silver eyes staring at her curiously. At this time, Luna was wearing a skull robot helmet, which looked a little weird. Luna took off her skull helmet and sat next to Leela. I just want to be quiet for a while." Leela didn't have any bad feelings towards this strange girl, and said to her with a forced smile, "I think, in fact, death and loss are very normal things in people's lives." After sitting for a while, Luna suddenly spoke. Leela looked at Luna in surprise. The little girl seemed to have noticed her inner thoughts. "My mother blew herself up in a spell experiment when I was 9 years old." Luna told the story of her mother. She was a strong and optimistic witch. She was good friends with Regulus Black. After the First War, she lost all her friends, but she got through the hard times with faith and courage. During that time, my father was heartbroken and mad, and I was also very sad, but those hard days will always pass, and time will eventually dilute everything, Luna said to her in a tone as soft as the wind. "My mother always said that the things we lose will always come back to us, and sometimes, the way they come back may be beyond our expectations, loss and return. This is my philosophy of life. Lost things always have a way to come back, although sometimes it is not the way we expect," Luna said to the stunned Leela in a soft voice. "You have not lost your dream and your father. I think they will come back one day. I don't think you are alone. They will always be with you, and Mr. Peter loves you too." Leela felt much better after listening to Luna's words. "Thank you for comforting me." Sorry, I don't know your name yet." Leela was touched. She knew that the girl was trying her best to comfort her, but what made her embarrassed was that she didn't know the girl's name. "My name is Luna, Luna Lovegood, and I know your name is Leela Kent." Luna didn't care and said to her. Leela shook her head and said to her, "No, Luna, my name is Leela Patrick Kent." "Oh, that sounds like a nice name." Luna didn't say anything after that. The two of them sat on the ruins of the building and looked at the night of the city in the distance quietly. That, good people and bad people are really complicated. Sometimes Mr. Superman looks like a good person, and sometimes he looks like a bad person. After a while, Luna said to Leela. Without waiting for Leela to answer, Luna continued, "There was a strange man who once said that the world is not divided into good people and Death Eaters, bad people. Everyone has light and darkness in their hearts. What really matters is how we choose. This is who we really are." Although I don't think he is describing anything, he must have realized this sentence in a very painful life. If you are confused, I think this sentence is very suitable for you, Miss Patrick. Standing up, Luna tidied her clothes. "Okay, I have to go. I wish you a happy life in the future." Putting on the skull mask again, Luna smiled at Leela and turned away. Looking at this strange girl, Leela suddenly felt a strange feeling in her heart. This girl is really good at comforting people. The next day, Superman woke up from his sleep. He was still a little confused about the dream he had. In the dream, he successfully defeated Peter and Batman, imprisoned Kara, and controlled Batman to make him a puppet. But is that what he wants? Covering his aching head, he looked around at the buildings and found that his hands were tied. He was standing in the Fortress of Solitude in the Arctic. Peter, Batman, Kara and Leela, 4 people were standing in front of him. Peter, Bruce, Kara, Leela, I'm sorry, Dad. Leela looked at the Injustice Superman with his hands tied and apologized to him reluctantly. Bruce pressed the switch next to him. As the switch was pressed, the entrance to the Phantom Space was opened. Realizing that he was going to be exiled to the Phantom Space, the Injustice Superman's expression became complicated in an instant. Peter, Bruce, you know, the Phantom Space can't keep me trapped forever. Bruce nodded, I know, but when you come out, we'll see who is stronger. The Injustice Superman smiled, very good, Bruce, you are still so arrogant. Then he looked at Peter, Peter, take good care of Leela and Kara. Peter nodded, I will, Leela, I love you. After the Injustice Superman said to Leela with red eyes, he looked at Kara, Kara, are we still a family? No matter what time, we are a family. Kara said with a choked voice. Thank you. The Injustice Superman smiled slightly, turned around and walked into the Phantom Space. After he disappeared in the Phantom Space, Kara lowered her head in pain. Peter put his hand on her shoulder. Kara, are you okay? No. Kara turned her back to Peter and walked forward to the corner of the wall, looking at the S logo on it. This thing should bring hope to people, but it makes people fear him. Kara choked and said, this shouldn't happen. Peter came over, nodded and said, yes, this symbol should depend on the person who tries it. I believe that from the beginning, when Bruce and Clark formed the Justice League, they never wanted to scare people. He gently put his hand on Kara's shoulder. Don't worry, I believe you and Leela will return this symbol to its original meaning. At the same time, Horace was wearing power armor and standing on the ruins of Metropolis. Looking at the wreckage of the spaceship in front of him, Horace's eyes flickered. He has collected a lot of wreckage of Brainiac's spaceship in this world, as well as various information materials. But more importantly, he needs to enter the interior of Brainiac's spaceship to learn more about the information technology in Brainiac's hands. According to his father, Brainiac is a conqueror and scientific researcher. As long as he has mastered his information and knowledge, it will be no problem to deal with the Green Lantern Corps in the future. What are you doing? Horace was picking up a damaged engine when he heard a voice behind him. He looked back and found that it was Luna. Aren't you hot in this big iron can? Luna asked Horace curiously. No, it's not hot. Horace shook his head. Luna held a silver cape that she got from nowhere and continued to ask him, what are you looking for? Are you looking for the moon frog? What? The moon frog, the bubble snot monster, the crooked horned snorkeler, the black lipa, and the agabashjid. These things have always existed, but people haven't discovered them yet. I believe that such things must exist, so are you looking for such things? Luna said something that Horace couldn't understand again. Chapter 788 Horace's Psychic Burst. What is that? I mean, what is a moon frog? Luna blinked and explained to him, moon frogs are animals that live on the moon. The Quibbler once reported that a wizard claimed that he flew to the moon on a sweepstakes and brought back a bag of moon frogs as evidence. Horace didn't know that Luna had some strange ideas, and nodded subconsciously, really believing that there were moon frogs in the world. Then Luna stepped through the puddles barefoot, tilted her head and looked at the superheroes on the advertising screen. The earrings made of butterbeer bottle caps on her ears made a crisp sound. The light here is wrong, she suddenly spoke to the empty street corner, and the tip of her wand lit up like a firefly. All the colors are like oil paintings diluted by heavy rain. Horace didn't know how to respond to her question, so he remained silent rationally. He had never had experience dealing with such a girl. Luna tiptoed to look at the engine in Horace's hand. Because the light nearby was too dim, Luna's wand drew a spiral in the air, fluorescent flash, the golden light bloomed, and Luna saw the damaged engine in the other's hand. Your name is Luna, right? Horace coughed, put down the engine, and asked the curious Luna. I'm Luna, from the Raven Society. Are you Raven's classmate? Little Horace continued to ask. Yes, I'm also a fan of Mr. Patrick. Horace shrugged his shoulders. Many people are fans of Emperor Dad. What is the Emperor? Luna continued to ask him. That's a long story. Horace thought for a moment and said, the Emperor was a great man. He launched a rebellion against the warlords on Terra, and in order to win the war, the Emperor used genetic technology to transform many warriors, and these warriors were the Thunder Warriors. The later Astartes Legion was developed on the basis of the Thunder Warriors. After that, the Emperor fulfilled his long-cherished wish of unifying Terra, and then through a series of means and technologies, he established the Astropathic Force and the Astartes Legion, and with the slogan of Make Humanity Great Again, he led the army to sweep across the entire galaxy. Horus shrugged and said to her, "But that was the Emperor of another time and space. The Emperor of this time and space is my father, and he is also the human who tried to make humanity great again, so he is my Emperor Dad." Luna blinked, "So he is Superman?" Without waiting for Horus to answer, Luna said to the stunned Horus, "The gentleman in the red cloak, that is, Mr. Superman, was too afraid of losing, so he stuffed the whole world into a crystal coffin." She blew the ashes on the tip of her wand. "I guess he has never seen a weeping mandrake. Their tears can undo the most stubborn petrification spell." "Will the Emperor Daddy you are talking about, Mr. Patrick, become a Superman?" "No, the Emperor Daddy will definitely not," Horus said firmly. "Why?" "Because," Horus thought for a moment and replied, "the Emperor does not love anyone. He cannot have that kind of emotion. For the Lord of Mankind who shoulders an unimaginable responsibility, this is the most practical choice. He does not love his sons, nor does he love anyone, but he loves all mankind. But the Emperor Daddy, he loves his sons, not all mankind." Just as the voice fell, the modified robot he had hidden nearby suddenly malfunctioned. A click sound was heard, and Brainiac's robot slowly moved. "Oh, no, this is not good." Horus shook his head with a solemn expression on his face. He opened his arms and protected Luna behind him. "Don't worry, I'll protect you." Horus raised the grenade launcher in his hand and said to Luna behind him, "There are some minor problems, I can handle it." Facing the out-of-control robot slowly approaching, Horus could hear his heartbeat echoing in his skull. Luna was relatively calm, leaning against little Horus and taking out her wand. "It's okay, I have experience dealing with this kind of thing." Bang! The fast-running robot rushed towards Horus. The young Primarch quickly bent down to avoid a silver-white tentacle stabbed by the robot. The silver-white tentacles splashed sparks when they brushed against the shoulder armor. The surface of these streamlined killing machines floated with complex topological patterns, and the core of their chests sealed the fire of civilization plundered from other planets. "Swear in the name of the Emperor Father," Horus crushed the head of the first harvester robot with his molecular claws. "You have defiled the sanctity of the mechanical god." As he spoke, Horus quickly killed the first robot. Then he saw 3 skeleton robots on the left, forming a triangular force field. The boy turned around and fired his bolter, sending the robot flying with a bang. The robot's acid began to corrode the power armor, and the hair on Horus's neck suddenly stood up. The next second, with a bang, he was knocked out. Analyze their energy patterns. The young Primarch crashed into the ruins of a nearby building, and marble pillars exploded behind him. He quickly got up from the ground and analyzed the robot's combat mode. The tactical panel showed that the enemy was reorganizing some kind of encirclement. Energy began to gather in the pistol in his left hand. At the same time, Horus felt that his psychic power seemed to surge uncontrollably. Did his uncontrolled psychic power explode? Horus was immediately shocked. The so-called psychic power explosion refers to the explosive growth of the abilities that psychics show in the physical universe by extracting the energy of the subspace to gain powerful progress. Psychics use their psychic power by absorbing the energy of the subspace. These energies are extremely powerful, but using them brings great risks. Whenever a seeker uses psychic power, creatures, usually demons, whose souls are projected into the warp will be attracted, which may cause the seeker's soul to be devoured by demons and face death. Therefore, the Inquisition constantly hunts down seekers who are considered dangerous to ensure their safety. The training process for seekers is very strict, including years of meditation and self-discipline. Trained seekers are able to reduce the risk of being attacked by demons while using their mental abilities. Experienced combat seekers can condense psychic power into sharp arrows to penetrate thick armor. At this time, Horus felt that under the influence of the machine soul and these robot legions, his psychic power had burst out with unprecedented power. He could now even release infinite energy and bombard the enemy. But at the same time, a mental dizziness began to hide him. "No. I must persist. I can't let myself be corrupted by these psychic powers." Horus gasped and quickly calmed himself down. The robots in the distance ran towards him quickly. Horus endured the changes in his body, roared, and rushed forward. During the advance, The jump trajectory was changed several times, and the chasing robots were constantly hit by their own refracted beams. But soon, the molecular claws of the young Primarch suddenly failed when they were dozens of meters away from the robot. He saw that the space itself was distorting. His right arm was clearly swinging forward, but the actual trajectory turned into pulling backwards. 3 invisible Reaper robots appeared from the space trap in the air, and their claws cut through the waist protection of the power armor. Horus smelled his own blood and instantly understood his situation. Either he would be killed by the opponent, or release the power of the subspace that he had not yet mastered. He suddenly remembered the power shackles theory that Peter had taught him before. Maybe this is a test given to me by the Emperor. Horus suddenly shut down all the defense systems of the power armor and let the particle beam of the Reaper robot pierce his left shoulder. At the moment of severe pain, he grabbed the robot's claws. When the psychic flames flowed upstream along the data cable, the whole space was filled with the sound of the robot's wailing. Horus's retina began to bleed, and he saw that all the nearby robots began to burn violently. The boundless psychic flames immediately swept the surroundings. The powerful aura was unexpected even for Luna, who was used to seeing big scenes. Luna, who was standing nearby, was stunned when she saw the psychic flames continuously bursting into huge explosions. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 789 Batman. As a father, I have never really been a role model. Luna looked at everything in front of her in shock, and she didn't even notice the machine approaching from behind. At the critical moment, Horus suddenly raised his right hand. As he raised his right hand, a shock wave visible to the naked eye hit the robot behind Luna with a boom. The enemy who tried to attack Luna was tumbled and knocked away by this psychic shock wave. After dealing with the enemy who rushed over with one blow, Horus instantly rushed over to another robot head-on. Seeing that Horus had no time to turn around and was about to be attacked by the enemy, Luna raised her magic wand anxiously and was about to attack the enemy. Unexpectedly, the next second, a burst of silver energy whistled in the air and hit the enemy who attacked Horus. In the violent explosion of boom, the robot attacking Horus was instantly blown away. Then Luna and little Horus saw Peter's figure appearing behind them. Mr. Patrick, Emperor Dad, seeing Peter appear, the two made surprised sounds. How are you? Are you two not injured? Peter walked to the two and asked them if they were injured. He had just returned from the Fortress of Solitude in the Arctic when he sensed the strong psychic fluctuations coming from nearby. When he arrived at the scene, he saw the erupting Horus. He had not expected that Horus would be so powerful after awakening. If he was not unskilled in the use of psychic energy, the psychic shock of this boy would probably kill these robots in one go. Peter stroked his chin and fell into deep thought. However, the boy's growth rate is also amazing. It has been less than a year since his advent, and he has grown to be almost as tall as Luna in the 4th grade. But think about Sanguinius, who is also a Primarch. It is said that this boy has grown to the size of a 3-year-old human child after only 3 solar weeks. At this age, he killed a huge fire scorpion with his bare hands and never expressed fear of the attack of this giant beast. When Sanguinius was truly a normal 1-year-old, his appearance and behavior were completely like a young adult man. Horus is less than 1-year-old now, and growing to this size should be considered slow. I'm fine, Emperor Dad. After suppressing the hot emotions in his heart, Horus looked at Peter with some trepidation, fearing that his father would hold him accountable for the unauthorized research on robots that led to the out of control. What about you, Luna? I'm fine, Mr. Patrick. Luna pursed her lips and smiled at Peter. These robots are very interesting. I have always wanted to find out if there are any nymph hooks in them. Peter was stunned for a moment. Nymph hooks? Yes, a magical animal that will hide in the body of any creature. It can not only steal my shoes, but also infect mistletoe. Knowing that this girl's thinking is always whimsical, Peter did not continue to ask. Nodding, he asked Horus, did you feel uncomfortable with this psychic burst just now? Horus, no, Emperor Dad, I just feel a little tired, as if I had a sweaty exercise. Horus shook his head and said to him. That's good, Peter said, pulling his hand over and simply checking him. He was really worried that Horus' body was contaminated by the energy of the warp. As far as he knew, The Emperor had created 20 Primarchs in a laboratory underground in the Himalayas. But the Chaos Forces stole the 20 superhuman babies from the laboratory in an unknown way and let them travel through the warp. Because the Emperor gave each Primarch a powerful mysterious power to protect them, the power of the demons could not destroy the Primarchs. But in the dark corners of the Empire, there is a most heretical view, which is, the Primarchs were touched by the power of chaos when they were young. Now that Horus's psychic power has exploded, he is really worried that Horus will be corrupted. After a rough inspection, Peter was relieved to confirm that there was not much difference in Horus' body. The wound on Horus' injured shoulder began to heal. This kid's body is getting stronger and stronger. Not only is he becoming more and more handsome like himself, but his physique is also getting more and more abnormal. 2 days ago, he saw Horus smashing boulders with his hands. In terms of using various weapons, Horus soon surpassed his teacher, Boom. You don't look alright. Peter shook his head and released rune magic to heal the other's wounds. That? Emperor Dad, seeing that Peter seemed to be in a good mood, Horus carefully put forward his idea. Can I enter the skeleton ship and get access to Brainiac's knowledge? He has been coveting Brainiac's knowledge and technology for a long time. Brainiac? Peter looked at him in surprise. Are you interested in the civilization information he collected from all over the universe? Yes, I think that perhaps I can learn this knowledge and help you, Emperor Dad. Horus pressed the operating switch of the power armor, and the helmet opened, revealing his overly handsome face. Because I always feel, Emperor Dad, that in the terrifying darkness of the distant future, there will only be war. I have seen that dark age in my dreams. In that age, to be a human being is to become an insignificant member of its countless billions of people, living in the most cruel and bloody regime imaginable. The humans there have long forgotten the power of technology and science, because they have forgotten too much and can never relearn. Humans have also long given up and forgotten the promise of progress and understanding, because in the grim dark future, there is only war in the universe. These are the stories of that era. There is no peace between the stars, only eternal killing and massacre, and the endless ridicule of the hungry gods. After a pause, seeing the surprised expression on Peter's face, he removed his serious expression and smiled at Peter. What I mean is, Emperor Dad, the power of technology and science is important. Yeah, you're right. Peter touched Horus's hair, which had not yet fallen out, and said to him, next, you stay to help Bruce use Brainiac's technology to restore the collected cities. Boom and V will also stay and study with you. Horus was very happy to hear Peter agree to him. But he soon showed a frustrated expression on his face. Emperor Dad, aren't you staying? I haven't been back to the farm for a long time, but don't worry, I will come back to pick you up soon. Peter comforted Horus. Dad will take you back in half a month at most. Okay, although he was a little reluctant, in order to better help his father in the future, he decided to stay here for a while. Don't worry, Emperor Dad, I will take good care of Bakugo and Wei, and I will also urge them to learn knowledge. Horus patted his chest and made a promise to Peter. The next day, Peter brought a group of people from the Farm Alliance, hugged Kara and Leela, and walked to Bakugo and Wei. Bakugo looked at him with red eyes. Dad, I want to be with you, but didn't you say that you wanted to understand the technology brought by Brainiac? You, a little inventor, are you willing to give up such a good opportunity? Peter picked up Bakugo and touched her watermelon head and asked. I just want to be with my dad. Bakugo sniffed and said. Next time you fight, go find Bruce. He is a master fighter in this world. Peter coughed and whispered to him. Batman, who was standing next to him, pricked up his ears when he heard Peter's words. Seeing Peter coming, he quickly looked away and pretended not to hear. Peter stretched out his hand and said goodbye to the unjust Batman. Holding Peter's hand, Bruce said to him with mixed feelings, this is really long. Peter nodded. Yes, it's very long. Bruce looked at the ruins of Metropolis for a while, and said to Peter, perhaps as a father, I have never really become a role model, and as a so-called superhero, everything that happened in Metropolis is a reflection of my failure of principles and ideas for decades. You have a group of children who can understand you and are willing to listen to your guidance, and you are willing to give everything for them, which I can't do. Bruce said what he really thought in his heart. He has been reflecting and suffering about his failed relationship with Damian. Damian would rather follow Superman to the end than stand on his side. Now seeing Peter's close relationship with his children, he has a lot of feelings in his heart. Peter patted Bruce's hand, and everything was said without words. On the other side, Boom turned around and looked at the bottle of potion in his hand. Superman potion, Boom's eyes narrowed, imitating Peter's. Chapter 790, Riven was robbed? Half a month later. Patrick's farm. Peter went to the Injustice world to pick up Horace, Boom and V to go home. Wanda and Quicksilver, who had been living on the farm for many days, had returned to the Marvel world. Hermione and Fleur, as well as everyone in Hogwarts, had been away from home for too long and were worried about their parents and family, so they also rushed back home to visit their relatives. Gwen went back to Earth-65 universe to visit her father. Earth-65 universe Raven, Lana and Louise sat in the Talon bar, chatting together. Raven was very sad about Gwen's departure. The reason was that she had become good friends with Gwen during this period. Gwen put on a spider costume, which was cool and sassy, and her personality was direct and decisive, and she was not afraid of any challenge. In battle, Gwen also showed amazing wisdom and strategy, and always found a way to solve the problem at the critical moment. When she was dealing with Black Adam in the Injustice world before, she was almost attacked from behind by Black Adam. In the end, it was Gwen who repelled Black Adam at the critical moment. You said that Gwen in every universe will fall in love with Peter. Louise, who was drinking, suddenly asked Raven, will Gwen in this world fall in love with your father, Raven? After all, your father is also called Peter. Raven, no, of course not, my father is not Spider-Man. Raven immediately shook her head to indicate that it was impossible. Besides, my father's name is Peter Patrick, not Peter Parker. At this point, Raven also felt that something was wrong. It seems that the names are similar? Could it be that the real father has something to do with Gwen Spider-Man? Lana was just about to ask when Mr. Peter would be back. Louise interrupted her curiously and asked Raven, you said Gwen Stacy was from Earth-65. Yes, Earth-65, Gwen called her that. She said a guy named Spider-Man 2099 gave her that name. Raven supported her chin with both hands and said to Louise, she also said she had seen a guy named Spider-Ham. Spider-Ham, yes, he said he was from Earth 8311. In this universe, all the characters are anthropomorphic cartoon animals, and Peter Potter is a cartoon pig. Peter was not originally a pig, but a spider. He lived in the underground laboratory of scientist May Potter, the counterpart of May Parker, Peter's aunt in the main universe. Once, May created the world's first atomic-powered hairdryer. She hoped to introduce nuclear fission technology into the beauty industry and revolutionize the hair care industry. As a result, May suddenly lost control while experimenting on herself, bit the little spider Peter, and then fainted. Peter instantly grew up and turned into the image of a pig. Wow! Listening to what May said, Lois showed a shocked expression on her face. Are you kidding? Isn't that a comic book world, or an anime world? Would there be such an image in reality? Raven shrugged her shoulders. What's so strange about this? Maybe we are also comic books, or images in some books. Lois nodded. That makes sense. After all, in the unjust world you mentioned, I was blown to death by the Joker. Raven had previously told Lois and Lana about her experience in the unjust world. Especially this war with Superman. She was very sad that Clark in another world had such a tragic life. Lois sighed and said, maybe I am also a tragic tool person in the unjust world you mentioned. I died just after having a child, and I became a couple with Clark, a nerd. Is there anything more inconsistent with the logic of reality than this? Bartender, Lois said, looking at the bartender at the bar. The newly hired bartender behind the bar is an experienced old sailor. The other party has long ears and a curved hooked nose. And the bartender's Hawaiian shirt was so bright and colorful that he looked like a clown exploding from an Easter egg. What do you want, Louise? Louise shrugged and said to him, rum. I've been very irritated at work recently and need some alcohol to stimulate me. The bartender continued to ask her, what kind of rum do you want? Daiquiri? Mojito? Hurricane? Painkillers. Louise thought for a moment and said, painkillers, I need painkillers, but then a voice came, a male voice, came to her side and said, give me a cup of enlightenment tea and give this lady a cup of mamajuana. In Louise's surprised eyes, she saw the bartender put a glass on the bar with a bang. Then he picked up a can and poured something into the quilt. It was a brown liquid, a bit like Coca-Cola, but more turbid than Coke, and a bit like pool water stirred with a stick. Louise looked at the man in the jacket who offered her a drink, raised her glass, and said to him, thank you, sir. Louise, who was not shy, picked up the glass, then put down a pint glass and poured the liquid into the large cup again. Louise, who was a little rebellious, always liked this kind of strange things. After tasting the drink she had never experienced before, Louise felt that it tasted a bit like, she couldn't even say what it was like. This drink had the caramel taste of wine and the sweetness of honey, but it also tasted like licking tree roots, like picking up a bunch of random things in the forest, thistles, thorns, bark, branches and the like, and then throwing them into the cup in front of her. Louise said to him, not bad, just like the birch beer saliva spitting out of Satan's mouth. I like this feeling. Hearing Louise's words, the man laughed. You are very humorous, young lady. The idiot in the leather jacket walked behind the three people and touched Louise's back with both hands, gently, but always on it. Louise frowned and tried to move, but the guy in the leather jacket pressed harder, as if he already owned her. Then the guy in the leather jacket put on sunglasses on his chiseled head. His breath smelled like sour tequila. In Louise's eyes, this guy's head was swollen like a cocktail olive, and under the light, the color of his head looked about the same as olive oil. Get lost, Louise, who noticed the other party's little move, naturally would not indulge him and scolded him. Don't be so hypocritical. Why don't you look at me straight in the eye, miss? He lowered his voice when he said this, and chuckled. As he spoke, two guys dressed as bikers next to him also came over. Louise stood up and glared at the other party. If you don't get lost, I will forcibly interrupt you. Hearing Louise's words, several people laughed. I'm going to interrupt you forcibly, the man in the leather jacket imitated her, saying these words in a tone of pretending to be malicious, and then the other fat man added, I don't even know what this means. Hey, Louise laughed, and then turned around. With a bang, she punched the leather jacket man in the mouth. Then Louise pulled out her other arm, grabbed the other's head into her arms, and held the jacket man's head with both hands and slammed it against the fat man's head. The two of them made a dull bang sound like two pieces of beef. The fat man who was hit was tripped by his own feet and fell out with a thump. Raven and Lana next to them looked at Louise, who suddenly took action, and both of them showed surprised expressions on their faces. Especially Raven. She hadn't made a move yet, but Louise took action neatly. Well, this woman's temper is really fierce. It seems that Clark is still suitable for this kind of woman. Just as Raven was complaining about Louise and preparing to teach this group of people a lesson, the door of the bar was suddenly knocked open with a bang. A girl wearing a pink and white one-piece tights and white goggles stood outside the door. The girl dressed strangely, with a thick black belt around her waist, a gun and a short knife hanging on it, and a cartoon logo with the word Gwyn on the belt buckle. Kids, why are you still standing there? Hurry up and raise your hands. The girl wearing white goggles, holding a rifle in her hand, opened her legs and shouted to everyone. Oh, this is me now, male. Sharks have two penises, the girl sang meaningless words. Ahem. That's right, this is me. The girl quickly shook her head. Okay, it seems a bit strange. It seems that all the thoughts that come to my mind will be automatically converted into some speech bubbles and then emerge. As she spoke, a speech bubble appeared above her head. The content in the dialogue bubble click. Click. Now I just want to hear the sound of gunfire. The sound of gunfire appeared in front of everyone. The girl shook her head and shook off the bubble with text on her head, muttering in a low voice, well, okay, this way, readers will really like me. I don't know if my brain should really open up a way out for you people, but at least these people can't see my past. Then she walked to the stunned jacket man who fell to the ground and said to him, hey, man, if you want to poop, I'll help you call the police. What? I mean, you look a bit annoying. With a bang, the bullet shot by the strange girl penetrated the jacket man's arm at once. Blood splattered, and the jacket man immediately covered his arm and fell to the ground screaming. Okay, now it's robbery time. Take out the money from the cash register. The strange girl pointed at the bar and shouted. Chapter 791 Gwen, where is Peter? I want to fight him. Hurry up, I'm a little busy now. The strange girl pointed the gun at the bartender. I couldn't find the bank just now, so I had to rob your bar temporarily, but don't worry, after I rob the bank, I will return the money to you soon. This money can only be considered a loan. Just consider it as a loan from me, Mr. Bartender. After listening to what the strange girl said, everyone was stunned. In this day and age, can you pay back the money you robbed? Hey, stop it. Raven looked at the girl wearing goggles and planning to rob a bank, and immediately stopped her. You can't rob here. She looked at Lana. Lana, call the police. I'll keep this guy. Why call the police? The strange girl scratched her head. I should be the one calling the police. What? Raven stared at the strange girl. Didn't you just rob him? If you insist on thinking that, it's okay. The girl shrugged her shoulders. I did rob him, but he deserved it. The strange girl pinched her waist and said, his name is Rachel. He is a robber who recently robbed a jewelry store, and now he's hiding here as a bartender. I am doing a good deed. Hearing the strange girl say that she was a robber who robbed a jewelry store, the bartender's face suddenly changed. His face turned pale in an instant, and he put his hand under the counter and held the pistol inside the counter. When Raven and the strange girl cast their eyes over, he suddenly raised the pistol in his hand. Don't move. The sudden turn shocked everyone in the bar. Lana stared blankly at the guy who suddenly pulled out a pistol. Raven didn't expect that things would suddenly turn around, and the bartender suddenly became a robber. She stretched out her hand, ready to deal with the bartender holding a gun. Suddenly, a black magic power, at an angle that no one could see, rushed towards the pistol in the bartender's hand. Unexpectedly, the strange girl moved first. The girl quickly turned around and jumped onto the bar, and with a bang, the tip of her shoe kicked the opponent's pistol accurately. Before the sound of metal collision had subsided, she supported the table with one hand to use the force to flip, and the end of her hair swept across the robber's stunned face. With the other hand, she picked up the bottle and chopped it down at the back of his neck. With a bang, the bartender's head was hit hard, and his mind became a little unclear. He staggered and was about to fall backwards. Hey, even robbers have started to cosplay bartenders these days, the strange girl giggled, and when the other staggered, she pulled the bartender's tie around his wrist, and used her knee to push his spine. The moment the gun fell to the ground, she suddenly blinked at the void. Dear readers, guess what else is hidden in this idiot's coat? Before she finished speaking, she had reached out and pulled out a dagger from the robber's inner pocket. The handle of the knife turned silver flowers at her fingertips, and she nailed it into the wooden floor with her backhand to seal the other's trouser legs. The bartender endured the pain and punched at her, but she leaned back to avoid a straight punch. Her waist arched like a cat, and her legs twisted around the other's neck and flipped in the air. A dull bang sound came. When the man smashed the wooden table heavily, she had already stepped on the flying glass shards and landed lightly. Her pink skirt was not messed up at all. Don't be in a hurry to leave. She bent down and picked up the lemon slice and threw it into the air. The next second, she suddenly grabbed the robber's collar, as if facing the camera directly. Look! 3 consecutive shots of the classic villain's expression of falling to the street. Click! 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 The strange girl grabbed the robber and quickly took 3 consecutive shots of his expression, and then threw the unconscious robber on the ground. During the whole process, she kept humming a song that Raven had never heard before, and even took a sip of a martini without spilling a drop. When the sirens came from afar, she was squatting beside the unconscious robber, drawing a strange logo on his forehead with lipstick, and waved to the police who came. Remember to tell the screenwriter that this fight scene will be added to the next comic. Raven, Louise, and Lana were stunned to see the pink girl's actions. What is she talking about? The screenwriter and the comic. Just when Raven was doubting her life, the girl squatted down and looked at Raven from top to bottom. What are you doing? You are Raven, right? The strange girl said to her happily. You are the magical beautiful girl. I have seen your Justice League Dark Apocalypse War. You are beautiful and powerful in it, and you are a couple with Damian. What? Raven looked at her in shock. What nonsense are you talking about? Come on, anyone who has read American comics knows that you, the daughter of the Dark Lord, possess powerful magical powers. Although you have suppressed this evil power for a long time, your strength has been greatly reduced. You are like a weak chicken on weekdays. But I have to say, your legs are so long and they are so beautiful. I am almost fascinated by you. Raven became more and more confused. Do you know me? Of course, I'm Gwen. The girl who called herself Gwen quickly rummaged through her school bag, and finally found a photo and handed it to the stunned Raven. Raven looked at the girl who looked like Gwen, and looked at her in shock. Are you Gwen Stacy? Gwen Stacy? No, of course not. Gwen coughed, pinched her waist and turned her head, as if explaining to the camera. Dear readers, if you see me for the first time, don't be surprised, but remember, I am not Deadpool, nor Gwen Stacy. My name is Gwendolyn Poole, a loyal fan of comics from the real world, and I am trying to find a way to return to the real world. Doctor Strange helped me leave the real world, and I came to this world inexplicably. It is much more difficult to stay here than in the phenomenon, Gwen said with a frustrated expression. Because, simply staying in this world is far from enough. I must always stay active enough to make all my storylines exciting. or my personal magazine can be restarted, otherwise I will disappear forever." Raven and Gwen next to them were all stunned when they heard Gwen's self-introduction. "What a mess. Did you say you are Gwen Stacy from the parallel world?" Raven asked in confusion. "No, I've said it many times. I'm Gwen Stacy. Look at my photo." Gwen Stacy showed Raven the photo. Raven lowered her head and saw the name Gwenpool written on the photo. Lois came up curiously and asked her, "What did you say just now? Is this the comic book world?" "Of course, this is the comic book world. They just called you Lois." "Are you Lois Lane?" Gwen Stacy stood up quickly and asked the other party. "Yes, I'm Lois Lane. Do you know me, the famous reporter, the reporter of the Daily Planet and the fan of the superhero Superman? With Lex Luthor, you two are the two people Superman loves the most. I've seen your comic in the Flashpoint incident. There, you are no longer Superman's lover, but work with Steve Trevor to help him collect information about the Amazon. You acted very bravely. I like you more in that image." Gwen immediately clenched her fists excitedly. "That's great. I met the protagonist and stayed with you. This way, I won't be deleted by the author. I almost ran out of the comic frame before. If my storyline is deleted, I will no longer exist. The editors really want to delete me. This is an unprecedented crisis. Because of Doctor Strange's service, I have no way to return to my original world. Oh my god. I don't know when they are so keen on deleting a character." Listening to Gwen's complaints, Raven and Louise looked at each other. "No, we are not on the comic world here. At least one thing you said is wrong. My father is no longer the Three Palaces demon, but Peter Patrick. I am the daughter of Patrick, the daughter of darkness." Raven said her name domineeringly. Louise next to her also said to her, "I am not Clark's girlfriend now. Now Clark is just a follower behind his godfather, Patrick." "Impossible." Hearing Raven's words, Gwen immediately showed an unbelievable look. "Peter Patrick, I have never heard of this name. Could it be that he was teleported to this world by Doctor Strange like me?" Gwen was immediately in a state of incomprehension. The world Gwen came from is the one where DC Comics and Marvel Comics exist in reality. Konami's X-Men arcade game exists in this reality, and Natalie Portman and Benedict Cumberbatch, like in reality, play Jane Foster and Doctor Strange in the Marvel series of movies and TV shows respectively. Gwen, who lives in this universe, is a Marvel fan. She likes superheroes and has read a lot of comics. As a time traveler from a world where American comics are all fictional works, Gwen knows that she lives in a comic book and can break the fourth wall. But now Raven says that his father is not Sangwon-mo, and Superman's godfather is Peter Patrick. Gwen suddenly felt full of crisis. Is this guy from the real world like herself? No. I must find out who he is, otherwise how can I stand out on the comics and let the editors not delete me? Okay, where's your father? I want to fight him. I want to show the readers who is the most powerful superhero. At the same time, Peter has returned to the farm with Horace, Boom and V. Two girls who were hurt in their hearts, Leela and Kara, were also abducted to the farm by him. Supergirl Kara had just experienced the tragic event of losing her cousin and was still in a depressed mood. When she saw the endless farm outside and the world tree in the courtyard that radiated warm light and brought her positive emotions, she felt much better. Chapter 792, Expose This Bootlicker, Wei Hates It. Horace, Boomstick and V, who returned home, were more excited than Layla and Kara. Emperor Dad, we helped Batman restore Coast City and other cities. Little Horace told Peter about their achievements in the Injustice world. So you have gained a lot? Peter asked Horace, Boomstick and V. Yes, not only Brother I, but from the information collected by Brainiac, I even learned the technology of quantum network. Quantum network? Peter didn't expect Horace to have mastered this technology. Yes, Emperor Dad, that is a new network, a method of using quantum entanglement to move data instantly around the world, which will trigger a computer revolution, or more precisely, it will completely change the use of computers. Later, Emperor Dad, I want to use this technology to create a network of web transport, Horace said incessantly. In the future, I will build a transportation network in the Americas, followed by Asia, and then Europe, and eventually connect the whole world together, making safe, convenient and cost-effective transportation possible. These will make our world smaller, and the miracle we create will be to closely connect us in a way that no one can imagine. Peter, you naughty kid, you are talking so magnificently. Do you want to run for president? As Horace spoke, He pressed the button of the machine he carried with him. As he pressed the operation key, countless points of light disappeared into the black background of the room. Then a picture of the Earth overlooking from space rose from the floor, making everyone feel as if they were walking in the sky. A ring-shaped space station was suspended in the distance. Emperor Father, using science, you and I, we can make humanity great, Peter. Oh, he fell silent after listening to Horace's words. This kid is really ambitious. He suddenly remembered the webway plan of the Emperor of the Warhammer world. A century after the beginning of the Great Crusade, the Emperor decided to return to Terra to implement a great plan, which was the webway plan. The Emperor planned to use the Golden Toilet Throne, a creation of the Dark Age found in the vast desert under the Asian continent. He planned to enter and reshape the Elder's webway through the Golden Throne as a direct and fast network of passage between the worlds of the Empire. This webway will reopen the portals that once connected the ancient saints and the ancient worlds of the Elder, which will enable humans to evolve at a faster, more scientific and economical pace than ever before. The webway is a far more efficient way of travel, and more importantly, it can allow humans to avoid the risk of being corrupted or killed by chaos during faster-than-light travel in the warp. Could it be that Horace is already planning to make a grid in the future in conjunction with his golden toilet? However, this grid plan completely ended the golden age of the Emperor and triggered the Horace heresy. After coughing, he said to Horace, regarding your grid plan, Horace, we will talk about it later. As he said that, he turned his gaze to Bakugo and Wei. He hadn't seen his two daughters for half a month, and he missed them very much. Bao, I haven't seen Dad for half a month. Do you miss Dad? Peter picked up Bao, who had grown taller, and said, and Wei, do you miss Dad? Yes, Dad, I miss you, Bao said seriously. Jinx Patrick's world is divided into 3 parts. One is my living world, which is full of rules and regulations. These regulations are specially made for me, although I can never fully comply with these regulations. Then there is the second world, which is very different from my world. This is your living world. You love me and take care of me all the time. Finally, there is the third world, where everyone except you and me lives happily. Bao deliberately sighed and pretended to be melancholy. During these days in the world of injustice, only the first world exists for me. The other worlds have collapsed. Without you, Dad, my world has collapsed by 2/3. Wei, who was happily beside him and was about to express her longing for him, suddenly felt bad when she heard Bao's words. Why didn't she realize that her sister was so annoying? When he lived in Zon before, Boom was not so good at speaking. At that time, Boom was still a timid follower who followed him every day. Sure enough, the proverb whoever lies down with a dog will get fleas when he gets up is right. Boom spent a lot of time with Loki and Zoo, who were good at flattering their fathers, and gradually approached Loki and them. On the other side, after hearing what Boom said, Leela and Kara looked at each other in surprise. Children these days are really getting more and more unusual. Leela felt that each of these children had special skills, especially in coaxing the master. Peter listened to Boom's words, which he didn't know where he learned from or whether they were from his own heart, and he felt a little touched in his heart. Sure enough, his daughter is his sweet little cotton-padded jacket. You are also Daddy's world. Peter kissed Boom in his arms on her white forehead. Holding Boom and rubbing Wei's hair, Peter looked at the watch on his wrist. The watch on his wrist once again reached the end. The speed was very slow before, but now it has suddenly accelerated a lot. It is estimated that another father-worrying person will come soon. He has begun to lose control of the current situation at home. If there is another troublesome person, his life will be completely in chaos. Peter looked at Bakugo and Wei, who were staring at each other with dissatisfaction, and he felt unwell. At the same time, hey, Gwen suddenly jumped out and seemed to introduce herself to the camera. Welcome back, dear readers, I missed you so much. Gwen made a signature hand-stretching gesture of a beautiful girl. I have to prove that I'm not an ordinary comic character, because I think this comic is about this, right? So, a comic character can do this kind of thing. Gwen pointed her butt towards the camera. Look, this is my round one. After showing her butt, Gwen went on to introduce herself. In the last chapter, did you discover that I have the ability to flash back? That's basically the same as Scarlet Witch's ability to control reality. I can control everything outside of the comics. Elegant and cool, but soon she showed a frustrated expression. But that's useless. I still have to work hard to sell more comics. Yes, this is unfair. I know that in this universe, I have to prove that I have absolute value and reason to stay here. Gwen pulled up her pink skirt. So if a girl wants to expand her fan base, what will she do? Yes, that is to do some sassy things, but not too much, otherwise it will be blocked. Then she shouted loudly, so, readers, please support me. I will launch fan masterpieces on my personal channel. Also, I am 19 years old today, and I guess I will be in the future, so I want to take this opportunity to declare that I am already legal in many things. She put on makeup with lipstick and continued, also, my name is Gwen, but I don't like to be paired with Deadpool. He is too old, so these words are for those authors and screenwriters who want to match us in the future. Don't even think about it. I know there must be someone among you who wants to do this. After complaining to the camera, she walked towards Raven and the others who were confused. Okay, I have finished introducing myself to the readers. Let's go. Raven looked at this girl who might be going crazy and wanted to say something, but in the end she remained silent and took a step. Forget it, I won't talk to this girl with some mental problems. She was afraid that she would be infected. A few minutes later, Raven, Louise, Lana, and Gwen entered the farm. Wow, that tree is really spectacular. Gwen took off her mask and showed a surprised expression. I didn't expect that there could be such an incredible thing in the remote countryside. Just as Gwen was looking at the world tree in the courtyard, the crow Fukin flew over and rubbed her ears gently. Gwen asked Raven with a shocked expression, is your father Odin? No, of course not. Raven shook her head and said, hey, can I ask you a question? Louise's reporter curiosity broke out again, and she asked her curiously, do you have a boyfriend? Huh? Gwen immediately became extremely flustered. I mean, of course not. No, of course not. Absolutely not. We broke up a long time ago. Gwen immediately walked quickly to an empty corner and took out her mobile phone to operate it. In the last text message, she was still sending I love you 3,000 times to the other party, but now she immediately sent a text message saying we broke up. Sorry, Gwen can flash back to the past it will, so she easily went back to the past and sent a breakup text message to her boyfriend. After sending the breakup text message to her boyfriend, Gwen walked over quickly and said to Louise with a smile, I have broken up, but don't get me wrong, I just feel that I can't fall in love in this situation. Louise, I just asked, and you broke up? Isn't this too extreme? Louise was complaining when Peter opened the door and came out of the room. As soon as he came out, he saw Gwen in a pink dress. Gwen? When did you put on this dress? No, you are not Gwen. Who are you? Peter looked at her in shock. Chapter 793 Gwen let's form a CP. Peter looked at the double blades behind the other person, his expression slightly surprised. This girl looks like Gwen, but she looks like Deadpool. Peter hesitated for a moment and tried to ask Gwen, are you the gender-changed Deadpool? No, of course I'm not her. My name is Gwen Waiter. Wait, dear readers, he actually knows the gender-changed Deadpool. Peter, you are definitely like me, a time traveler from the real world. You are so despicable that you actually adopted Raven as your daughter, and you also regard Superman as your godson. I dare not even think about it. At most, I just want to have a relationship with him. Peter, at this moment, the sound of metal collision came from the direction of the barn. Gwen stood on tiptoe to look in the direction of the barn, and the pink hood was almost blown off by the scene in front of him. He saw Star-Lord squatting in front of the tractor, repairing the tractor with a welding gun. Are you Star-Lord? Gwen's scream startled a group of pigeons. You don't repair the spaceship, but repair the tractor instead. Star-Lord put down the screws he was tightening, and he stood up when he heard the sound. Hi, Dad. Seeing Peter coming back from the world of injustice, he greeted Peter, and then cast a puzzled look at Gwen. Can I repair the tractor? Otherwise, will you buy a new one for my family? Star-Lord asked her speechlessly. The pink-haired girl suddenly pressed her throbbing temple. This is not right. There must be something cosmic. Her murmur was soon interrupted, and then in her stunned sight, she saw Kara and Lyra walked out of the room. Gwen's cartoon chin hit the ground. She pointed at Raven, Star-Lord, Kara, and Lyra mechanically, gesturing incoherently. Are you and them the Marvel editorial department taking the wrong drugs? Or is DC and Marvel collaborating? Peter was stunned, looked at the screaming Gwen, touched the beard on his chin, and continued to say to him, I also have a son who is Homelander and Loki. Is there any problem? Gwen's pupils trembled and gradually turned into excited flashes. Loki? Is he Thor's brother? She suddenly took out her sketchbook and scribbled frantically. I want to draw this scene into the special episode. Think about the title Avengers, Country Love Story? Or Galaxy Nanny Alliance? Peter, he was a little confused when he heard this big pink lolly say that she was from the real world. The other party not only knows DC, but also knows the real world. Is she really a time traveler like himself? You said you are from the real world, Peter asked her curiously. Do you know Marvel and DC? Of course, as a die-hard fan of Marvel Comics, I know almost everything about Marvel characters, including their secret identities. I also read DC Comics, but I don't like them very much. I prefer Marvel, and my favorite is Secret War. By the way, I don't read Deadpool comics, because for my taste, Deadpool is a bit too annoying. After Gwen finished speaking, she looked at Peter excitedly and shocked. It seems that we are from the same hometown. As she said that, she jumped up excitedly and hugged Peter. Great, I can throw away Deadpool, my partner, and we can be the best partners. Gwen said that he could give up Deadpool. Wait, Peter sorted out his thoughts and calmed himself down. If a fellow countryman from the real world really came, he would probably have to think carefully about whether the other party would stab each other when they meet. Talk to me about your world, Gwen. Huh? Gwen showed a puzzled expression on her face. But people don't like me to talk about my past life. I recently looked at the sales of my comics. They said they prefer me to be a bad guy. Although I don't want to be a bad guy, in order to survive, I am planning to do bad things and team up with you. I know there is a plan. The plan is to steal the top secret information of the Fantastic Four. Do you want to join me? If our plan succeeds, it will definitely be very interesting. If readers like it, sales will increase greatly. At this time, Gwen completely forgot about wanting to fight Peter alone. Seeing that this girl was crazy and out of tune, even worse than Luna, Peter had to coax her and let her tell the origin of her world. Although somewhat reluctant, Gwen still told the information of her world. Gwen came from the real universe outside the Marvel Comics universe. In her hometown universe, you can see Marvel Comics on sale, so compared with the Marvel universe, the universe where Gwen is located is the real world. In this real world, there are also DC World Comics, as well as related superhero TV series and movies. In Gwen's hometown, she is a middle school girl who likes the Marvel Universe very much, so she used a secret method to cross to the Marvel Universe. It can be understood as a plot need, forced to cross. Because Gwen has read a lot of Marvel Comics in her hometown, she knows almost all the secrets of the Marvel Universe, and can be understood as a web novel heroine who has been reborn with memories. Gwen has nothing to do with Deadpool, because when she first came to the Marvel Universe, she wanted to have a battle suit like those heroes. When making the battle suit, she told the tailor that her code name was Gwen, so the style of the clothes made by the tailor was very similar to Deadpool. So Gwen is just an ordinary person with some fighting skills, and she doesn't have any super strength, super speed or anything like that. Of course, because of Gwen's special situation, she also has a golden finger. First of all, she is a natural protagonist, just like the protagonist in the online article. No matter what dangerous situation she encounters, she can turn danger into safety, as if she has divine help. Gwen can also break the fourth wall. Gwen can come to a grid world where she can see the direction of the entire comic. She can even bring the characters in the comics to the world she travels through. Gwen can even break the fourth wall in her hometown, knowing that she also exists in a virtual world. But she is not as imaginative as Deadpool and has never thought of slaughtering the Marvel Universe. Gwen can even erase the border of the comic book with an eraser, and can even chat with herself in different borders. It's incredible, Peter. You weren't deleted by the editors and screenwriters, and you even adopted so many superhero orphans. After listening to Peter's brief description of his situation, Gwen grabbed his arm. I believe it. You are definitely the male lead. I'm the female lead. Maybe we can be a couple. You're not married, right? If you're not married, we can be a couple in this world. Gwen was excited to be a couple with Peter. Peter glanced at Raven, Boom and Wei who were looking at him angrily, and pulled back his arm calmly. The world you traveled through before may be a comic world, but this world is not a comic world. It is real, not created by the editor, and no one will be deleted by the editor because of their performance. Peter tried to explain the situation of this world to Gwen, who had a wild imagination. Then how do you know that you exist now? Because the editor sees that you have good sales and keeps serializing, Gwen said with a shrug. Hey, stay away from my dad. Raven saw Gwen hugging Peter and said in a bad mood. Don't worry, Raven, you will soon experience love life. Raven, What do you mean? Don't you know the Titans? I've heard of them, but that's a parallel world. Now there's only the Ravens. Raven shook her head and said, well, let me tell you, the Titans were originally formed by Batman's assistant Robin, Dick Grayson. This team aims to get rid of Batman's halo, become independent and become an independent superhero team. As for the members of the team, there are Dick Grayson, you, Starfire, Beast Boy, and finally you and Beast Boy got together, but some editors think you and Damian are a couple, so you and Damian Dean are written as a couple. After listening to Gwen's words, Raven's face turned red. She quickly glanced at Peter, glared at Gwen and said, you are talking nonsense. How can I like Damian? Besides, I dislike Batman as my dance partner because he is old. Of course, I don't like guys like Damian. I won't get married. I want to accompany my father for the rest of my life. Raven walked to Peter, grabbed Peter's hand and said firmly, Peter, it doesn't have to be so extreme. Although he was very touched by his daughter's words, he felt that it was a bit strange. Gwen just left, and you joined in. Do you want to replace her position and want to be your father's goddaughter? Boom Boom came over with his eyes wide open and asked Gwen. When Gwen heard Boom Boom say that Gwen had been here, she was shocked. Gwen, that idiot, has been here too? She slapped her forehead with her hand and said to Boom, that idiot also has a bracelet that can travel through the world, but she seems to have a very awkward relationship with her father. Also, I'm certainly not here to be your father's goddaughter. We're fine as boyfriend and girlfriend, but if we're father and daughter, forget it. After all, I have a father, and our relationship isn't awkward. Hearing that Gwen wanted to be his stepmother, Boom glared at her. You're just daydreaming. Can you beat Kara, Diana, Queen Frigga, Wanda and the others? Boom asked Gwen impolitely. Peter listened to Boom's nonsense, and he couldn't stand it anymore, so he grabbed Boom's hand. Okay, Boom, if you keep talking, you'll reveal all your father's secrets. And what's the relationship between me and Queen Frigga? Are you making up a rumor about your father? He was about to teach Boom a lesson, when he suddenly heard Clark's voice from outside. Godfather, something's wrong. Chapter 794, Battle for the Cape? No, Battle for the Farm. A few hours ago. Hogwarts World, dear Mr. Potter, we have received relevant information. The information shows that you cast a Patronus charm in front of a Muggle in a Muggle-inhabited area at 9:23 this evening. This behavior is a serious violation of the Reasonable Restraint of Underage Wizards Act. Therefore, we regret to inform you that you have been expelled from Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. The Ministry of Magic will soon send relevant representatives to your residence to destroy your wand. In view of the fact that you, Mr. Potter, have previously received a formal warning and a serious warning for violating Article 13 of the International Statute of Wizarding Secrecy, we regret to inform you, Mr. Potter, that you must appear in the Ministry of Magic before 9 a.m. on August 12th. Once again, we hope you take good care of yourself. Harry read the letter twice. His mind was blank, his head was buzzing, and he didn't notice what his uncle and aunt were saying next to him. There was only one sentence in his mind, which kept echoing. That is, he was expelled from Hogwarts. Everything was over, and he could never go back. He was in a state of despair, and he looked up at the quarreling Dursley family. Uncle Vernon was yelling loudly, with his fists raised high. Aunt Petunia, who was beside him, was holding Dudley, who was retching, with her arms. Just now, the Dementors attacked Dudley outside, and he had no choice but to use his wand to drive them away. Soon Harry's mind gradually became clear. The people from the Ministry of Magic would come and destroy his wand. There was only one way now, and that was to escape. But where could he escape to now? Hogwarts? No. Principal Dumbledore had disappeared, and Hermione and Fuller had also left the school with Mr. Peter. It would be useless to rush back to Hogwarts now. Oh, Mr. Padraic. Harry immediately thought of Peter. The only one who could help him now was Mr. Peter. Mark said that Mr. Peter had returned from the world of injustice, and he could go and seek his help now. Thinking of this, he quickly walked out of the room. Mr. Peter's farm was the safest place. Not only Dementors can't enter that place, even Voldemort can't enter. Even if Mr. Peter is not convenient to take me in, I can borrow his power armor to increase my combat power. Where are you going, Harry? Uncle Vernon saw Harry was about to leave, and immediately stepped forward to stop him. Seeing that Harry was not going to answer him, he walked quickly from the kitchen, blocked the door to the living room, and glared at him. "We are not done with your business, kid." Harry saw that his uncle was going to stop him, exhaled, and whispered to him, "Get out of the way, you can't leave. You haven't told me why Dudley is lying on the ground." Harry saw that the other party was blocking him, and his tone became a little stiff. "If you don't leave, I will recite a poisonous curse for you." As he said, he raised his wand to Uncle Vernon. Seeing that Harry pointed his wand at him and seemed to be able to really recite a curse, Uncle Vernon immediately became timid. But he glanced at Dudley behind him, and still mustered up the courage to say, "You can't use this wand, Harry, because I know that your school, which is called a lunatic asylum, will never allow you to play with it here." "Really?" Harry took a deep breath. "What you don't know is that my school has completely kicked me out. So I have no scruples. Now I can do whatever I want. Now I give you 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. Just as he said the third word, there was a sudden explosion in the kitchen. Aunt Petunia screamed in fear, and then Uncle Vernon quickly bent down to avoid it. Harry looked around in shock. He just didn't release any magic. Who did it? Harry soon found the culprit. It was the barn owl outside the window. Just when Harry was chanting the spell, the owl suddenly hit the glass. After seeing the owl, Harry quickly walked to the end of the kitchen and suddenly opened the window. After letting the owl out, he took off the parchment on the owl's leg. Taking out the parchment, Harry saw that it was a letter from Mr. Weasley. Mr. Weasley told him not to leave his uncle's house, nor to hand over his wand, but to stay at home quietly. What should he do? Harry immediately fell into hesitation. He could run away quickly and risk being caught by the Ministry of Magic, or he could stay where he was and wait for those people from the Ministry of Magic to find him. After hesitating for a while, he stood up and looked outside anxiously. As a result, he saw a school bus flying towards him. In Harry's stunned eyes, he saw the car rushing straight towards the window. With a dull bang, Uncle Vernon and Aunt Petunia screamed again and hid under the table. Hermione and Mark. Harry looked at the two people in the car in shock. "Why are you?" He didn't expect that these two people would come to save him. Mark came out of the suspended car, opened the window, and walked towards him. "I was reading in the library of Hogwarts today, and Hermione happened to be there. Ron informed us of the Ministry of Magic in time, so we came to save you." Hermione stood outside and stretched out her hand to him. "Let's go, Harry, let's hide in Mr. Peter's farm. When Dumbledore returns, he will definitely find a way to lift the Ministry of Magic's ban." Harry looked at the two of them. His heart was in a mess. If he did this, he might not be able to go to Hogwarts. No. Even if he couldn't go, he could still learn magic from Mr. Peter. Anyway, what's the point of Hogwarts without Dumbledore? Harry hesitated for a moment, but finally gritted his teeth, looked at his uncle and aunt with an apologetic look, then turned around and got into the car with Hermione and Mark. Uncle Vernon and Aunt Vernon could only watch him leave. In the car, Hermione frowned and asked him, "Harry, what happened?" Harry covered his aching head and said to the two, "It's Dementors, 2 Dementors. Dudley and I were walking in the alley between Magnolia Crescent and Wisteria Road. Then Dudley quarreled with me. I pulled out my wand, but didn't use it. Then 2 Dementors appeared." He paused and continued, "I recited the Patronus spell. I had no choice but to protect Dudley." Hermione was silent for a moment and said to him, "It must have been sent by Voldemort." "Yes, it was him." Harry nodded heavily, and then the three of them didn't continue. The Triwizard Tournament was temporarily suspended because of Voldemort's appearance, and then everything went to pieces. Everyone began to fall apart, and he was expelled. Hermione went to Padraic Farm, and Ron stayed in school to endure the torture of the old woman Umbridge. "Hermione, how was your experience in the Injustice world?" Harry, who felt that the topic was a bit heavy, asked Hermione about her experience in the Injustice world. "It's a long story. We finally defeated Brainiac, but it was an ending that didn't make everyone happy. Superman was locked up in the Phantom Dimension by Mr. Peter. The two friends who fought side by side ended up fighting to the death." Hermione sighed slightly and said to the two, "You will never guess who else I met." "Who?" "Malfoy, Luna, and Professor Lupin. Raven formed the Raven Order, recruited these people, and then took them to the Injustice world for training." "And Luna?" Harry opened his mouth in shock. He knew Luna. He had met her on the train to Hogwarts. In his impression, she was a girl who was a little crazy. Listening to Hermione's description of this experience, Harry also felt a little yearning. He should have followed Mr. Peter to take risks. "By the way, why don't we set up a club called the Order of the Phoenix?" Harry suddenly made a suggestion to the two. "Raven and the others are the Order of the Raven, And we are the Order of the Phoenix, Padrick Farm. What happened? Peter asked Clark in confusion. Harry Potter was expelled. As soon as Clark finished speaking, Harry, Mark and Hermione walked in. Harry said to Peter a little embarrassedly, "Sorry, Mr. Peter, because of using the Patronus charm, I was temporarily expelled from the Ministry of Magic, and they also wanted to destroy my wand, so I ran away." Gwen, who was standing next to him, looked at Harry wearing round glasses and said in shock, "Wait, I've heard his story in other worlds. Are you the savior Harry Potter? I need to flash back." "Excuse me." Gwen ran away as soon as she finished speaking. But soon she ran back to the courtyard. "Unbelievable. Peter, you actually kidnapped the savior." "Peter, dinner." The atmosphere in the room was a little weird. Gwen kept holding a camera and taking pictures of everyone. Harry was eating and asked Riven next to him in a low voice, "What is she doing?" Riven shrugged, "Maybe it's being kept as a souvenir." Azu ate the Chinese food that Paul's phone tried to make, and watched Gwen keep cracking and clench her fists and asked, "Standard Gwen, aren't you afraid of being beaten?" "It doesn't matter, I can always hide in the empty space." Gwen muttered excitedly, "I want to see you fight for a cloak now. If you all participate in the competition and fight for a farm, readers will definitely like it." Chapter 795, Riven, "Just wait, I will send you to the battle for the cloak soon." "What cape battle?" Loki came up to him and asked, "Why have I never heard of it?" "Well, it's a long story. It's a unique story in American comics. I'm very interested in sending you to the cape battle. I'm sure you children can fight better than them." Ahem, let's get back to the topic. The story originated from the fact that Batman was killed by Darkseid. This incident was actually a carefully designed experiment. In order to transform Batman, Darkseid teleported him to the distant past. Well, although I don't like Batman very much, Gotham seems to be unable to do without him, so Gotham has become chaotic. Gwen put down the camera and said, "Later, a series of riots caused by the Black Mask made the second young master stand up and transform into Batman, punishing criminals with violence. At the same time, the eldest young master, the third young master and others expressed their opposition to the second young master's behavior, which led to disputes between the two sides and intensified the conflict. But this story is quite bloody, you know? Damian has always been indifferent to the death of his father. He even had sex in a car with a beautiful girl after Batman's death." Hearing Gwen say something inappropriate for children, Peter coughed and interrupted her. Glancing at Bobo, who was busy cooking, and Wei, who was blushing, Peter said to Gwen, who was still unaware, "Hey, this is a family dinner, Gwen, pay attention to the inappropriate content." Gwen poked the mashed potatoes on the plate with a fork, and her eyebrows under her pink bangs were about to fly into her hairline. "Okay, I apologize, but Peter, you have to understand me. I can only exist on the page, so I have to do something that the audience likes to see, and it needs to be bigger and more evil." Gwen blinked her innocent eyes and looked at Azu, Star-Lord, Loki and others. Honestly, she suddenly tilted her chair back, hooked her heels around Peter's knees, and said to him, "Peter, the family photo here can piss off screenwriters from at least 3 universes." Peter nodded. "You too. I believe you can piss him off too if you change Deadpool's uniform to Barbie colors." He's not angry at all. "We've even made plans together. This guy will do anything to increase comic sales." Gwen stood up and walked to Peter's side without warning. She hugged Peter, Raven on his left, and Clark on his right, and with her eyes shining, Gwen raised her phone and said excitedly, "Quick! Pose for a family photo. I'm going to tweet that I found the illegitimate children of Marvel and DC, adopted by my fellow countrymen." Peter looked at this guy's funny poses and felt helpless. Click, click. Gwen put away her phone with satisfaction after hugging Peter and Raven and Clark taking a few funny poses. "Very good, but my figure is not very attractive in this way. I need to get myself a D cup in the future." Peter glanced at her chest and fell silent. "You are a D cup with your flat figure? You must be kidding. Gwen is even more beautiful than you. By the way, I once held a competition." Gwen, not knowing that Peter was complaining about her D, said to Tom and the others happily, "I entered a remote island. This island was specially organized for a charity event called Dream Fulfillment, to fulfill the wish of a dying child." Gwen talked about the things she had done to increase the sales of comics. "I brought in a lot of Marvel superheroes and had them organize a Marvel superhero volleyball tournament." Tom frowned and asked Gwen. The kid's dying wish was to watch his favorite superheroes play beach volleyball under the scorching sun. Rocky nodded next to him. Then why didn't he read fanfiction? Fanfiction contains everything, after all. Good idea. Now in Marvel's swimsuit issue, I'm basically paired with myself. Wait, don't interrupt me. Gwen coughed and continued. At the time, we were divided into two teams. One was the college student team, whose members were Iron Man, Captain America, Captain Marvel, Thor, and Black Panther. There was another team, the group that was originally created as a base character but later had better character development, whose members were She-Hulk, Tigress, Black Widow, Jessica Jones, Astra, and Black Cat. Gwen talked endlessly. The reason I invited these people is, first, they are very free, and second, they are very sexy. Peter wanted to ask her if there was a strange character mixed in this team. There is also a third team, Gwen continued. The third team is young readers' favorite, but older readers can't understand. The members are Ms. Marvel, Naja Pym, Miles Ramirez, Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, and Squirrel Girl. Wei heard this and came up to Peter curiously and asked, "Dad, do you know these people she is talking about?" Peter nodded. "I know most of them." In short, the beach volleyball game was a complete success. Gwen proudly made a satisfied gesture and said to everyone, "But don't be envious. I will invite you to participate in the beach volleyball game in a while, and then the readers will feast their eyes." Raven shook her head. "I have no interest in participating in any beach volleyball game." "That's not up to you," Gwen said to Raven proudly. "You will know when the time comes." After dinner, Harry sat on the roof of the barn a little depressed, looking at the moon and the night sky. When he was at his aunt's house before, he also liked to sit in front of the window and quietly look at the moon and the sky. Although he has escaped from his aunt's house now, he feels powerless when he thinks that he can never go back to Hogwarts and he is wanted. "What's wrong? Harry, are you still thinking about the Ministry of Magic destroying your wand?" After a while, he suddenly heard a voice from behind. Harry, who heard the voice, looked back in surprise and found that it was Mr. Peter who walked onto the roof at some point. "Mr. Padraic, you are still not asleep so late. I guess you must still be thinking about the previous things, right?" Peter walked to his side, looked at the huge moon in the sky, and asked him. Yes, Mr. Padraic, can I still go back to Hogwarts?" Harry asked him hesitantly. "Of course, didn't you say there will be another hearing? I will go with you then. I don't believe they dare to really expel you and destroy your wand." Hearing Peter's promise, Harry felt a warm current flowing through his heart, and thanked Peter with a warm heart. Thank you, Mr. Padraic. You and Sirius Black have been helping me all the time. You are like my family." Harry told Peter his true feelings. "You have a lot of family, Harry. They have always cared about you." Peter put his hand on Harry's shoulder, who had grown taller. "Including your aunt, her." Harry sat down a little depressed when Peter mentioned his aunt. "I don't know if Aunt Petunia treats me as a family. I am grateful to her, but I can feel that she seems to hate me, but sometimes she seems to care about me." Peter sat next to Harry, organized his words, and said to him, "Sometimes, love is complicated." As he said that, he released a silver energy and drew rune letters in the air. As the rune words appeared, a picture reflected in the air appeared in front of the two. Harry was surprised to find that the picture in front of him was Uncle Vernon and Aunt Petunia. "What is this, Mr. Padraic?" Peter explained to him. "The fireplace in your aunt's house has been used with flue powder, so I can use runes to connect to the fireplace in your aunt's house and observe what is happening there." The rune magic that Peter showed could observe what was happening in his aunt's house. "This is incredible, Mr. Padraic." Harry was shocked by the magical strength that Peter showed. He wanted to say something, but after hearing the voice coming from the screen, he quickly cast his eyes over. The aunt and uncle in the screen seemed to be arguing. Uncle Vernon pulled up his pants, and it seemed that his whole body seemed to be expanding, and the big purple face stretched in front of Harry's eyes. "Okay, now it's all solved." Uncle Vernon took a deep breath, and the front of his shirt was tight. "Harry should have gotten out of this house a long time ago." "What?" Aunt Petunia asked him in surprise. "I said, we won't let him come back," Uncle Vernon said loudly, and even Dudley next to him jumped in fright. "I said let Harry leave forever and never come back. I should have done it many years ago. The owls used this place as a sanatorium." The puddings exploded. Half of the living room was ruined. Dudley grew a tail. Marge was floating on the ceiling, and there was a flying Ford Anglia. "Get him out. Get out. He's had enough. He should have quit long ago. If there are lunatics chasing him, you can't stay here. You can't threaten my wife and son. You can't cause trouble to you. If he is going to follow the same path as his useless parents, I've had enough. I won't keep him here, forever, the uncle said loudly with a flushed face. I hope he will never defile the threshold of our home again. I really don't understand why we kept him here in the first place. Marge is right, we should have sent him to an orphanage. We were too soft-hearted, and in the end we got into trouble. We thought we could eradicate the evil roots in him and turn him into a normal person, but he was hopeless from the beginning. I've had enough. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 796. I was forcibly kissed even though I was such an attacker. Harry was a little sad to hear Uncle Vernon say that about him. He raised his head and said to Peter uncomfortably, Mr. Padraic, can I live on the farm? I mean, if I can't go back to Hogwarts, can I live here? Harry said what he thought. I don't want to go back to that home. I'm willing to live with you. If possible, I can work part-time to earn money. Looking at Harry's eyes, Peter was slightly stunned. This kid seemed very dissatisfied with his aunt's family. Of course, but I think you should watch their quarrel and then decide whether you want to live on the farm forever. Peter motioned him to continue watching. Harry looked at the screen in confusion. Did Mr. Peter know something? He originally thought that his aunt would tell him not to come back forever, but to his surprise, Aunt Petunia refused. That child must stay here, Vernon, this is his home, even if he leaves now, we can't abandon him, she said weakly. Why what? We can't kick him out and not let him come back when he's in danger, Aunt Petunia said, but her eyes were looking at the bright moon outside the window. She stood up again, and her expression became complicated in an instant. But Petunia, if we kick him out and don't let him come back, the neighbors will gossip, Aunt Petunia continued. She quickly returned to her usual capable and strict demeanor, although her face was still very pale at this time. They will ask some embarrassing questions, they will ask where he has been. We must find him back as soon as possible and not let him wander around outside. Hearing his wife say this, Uncle Vernon deflated like an old tire. But Petunia, dear, he wanted to continue, but Aunt Petunia ignored him and turned to Dudley. Dudley, you have to stay in your room, she said to her son. It's a bit dangerous here recently. Now, go to bed quickly. Seeing this scene, Harry's expression was a little dull. He didn't expect that Aunt Petunia didn't hate him completely. And, isn't she completely disgusted with me? From this moment on, Harry realized that his aunt was a real relative, and she and his mother were sisters. Yes, because she is an ordinary person, Harry. Sometimes we cannot understand the thoughts of ordinary people because we stand too high. Peter stared at the moon outside and said to him slowly, when your aunt talked about her own sister, she could not hide her excitement and anger. She pretended to be a secular judge and described Lily a freak. I am the only one who knows what he is like. She seemed to hate both magic and your mother. Snape once told me that the older Petunia told Lily in an imperative tone that she could not do this, and then, like most children, she brought out her parents to scare them, but she still couldn't stop her curiosity about magic, seeing that her sister can do magic, but she doesn't have this ability. Staring at the flower intently, imagine when we were young, seeing the neighbor's child have a beautiful, spring-loaded pencil case, wouldn't we be unable to resist begging our parents to buy one too? After Peter adopted so many sons and daughters, it was easy for him to understand the psychology between these children. Every child longs to get enough attention in the hearts of their parents, and everyone wants to be different. Just like when Mark first knew he was an ordinary person, the feeling of frustration and loss has been haunting him. However, pencil cases can be bought, but magic is innate. No matter how much Petunia begged Dumbledore, she didn't have magic blood flowing in her body. She was rejected tactfully and ruthlessly. She doesn't have Lily's looks, nor Lily's intelligence. She is not likable. However, as Lily's biological sister, she doesn't even have the opportunity to have magic like her sister. Harry listened to Peter's words and gradually became fascinated. He didn't expect that Mr. Peter also knew about Aunt Petunia's past. A girl, from birth, lived next to a sister who was surrounded by a halo. She was not valued, did not know magic, was unknown and even mediocre. She was willing to believe in that magical world, so she wrote letters expressing her longing. You have to know how much courage it took for this girl with a weird personality, But in the end she was rejected from the door of magic, so she lived like all muggles, got married, and had Daily. When she saw Lily's child, she might have thought of her own neglect and indifference in her childhood, so she tried hard to pamper Daily, as if this could make up for the loss of her childhood. She wanted to comfort herself. Lily's child, unlike my child who has no worries about food and clothing, Lily can finally be not as good as me. Peter paused when he said this. But Lily sacrificed for justice, and Petunia is still living an ordinary life as before. Many people didn't even know that she was secretly protecting her, blood of relatives. When she disappeared here, no one asked about her whereabouts. Maybe she is still living like a housewife, and occasionally checking the neighbor's garden. He stood up and put his hand on Harry's shoulder. Harry, your mother's ancient magic is essentially love. Sending you to Aunt Petunia's house is actually the continuation of love. Aunt Petunia gave you a home, although this home is not perfect. Once you step out of this home, perhaps the magic of love will disappear. Are you still determined to live on the farm and never return to number 4, Privet Drive, Harry? After speaking to him, Peter patted Harry on the shoulder. After listening to what Peter said, Harry suddenly had a different understanding of his aunt. He seemed to see his aunt as a little girl, secretly writing to Dumbledore, asking if he could go to Hogwarts like his sister. But Dumbledore politely rejected Petunia, and her mother knew about the shame of being rejected for her initiative to study. He understood this feeling. Sometimes, this kind of jealousy would distort a person's emotions. Mr. Pedraic, Mark said at the beginning that you are the greatest father in the world. Harry took a deep breath and said to Peter softly, I don't know how to define greatness, but I think you may be the best father in the world. Thank you, Mr. Pedraic. I never thought of this before. I didn't know Aunt Petunia had such a past. Peter smiled at him. You will always understand this, Harry. The difference is sooner or later. Also, I don't want you to stay in Privet Drive, because the magical protection left by Lily is getting weaker and weaker. It doesn't make sense for you to stay in Petunia's house. For your safety, you'd better leave there. It's just, I hope you can say goodbye to them, a sincere farewell, and don't regret your life. Listening to Peter's words, Harry nodded gratefully. I will, sir. At the same time, Gwen, who was hiding in the barn, overheard the conversation between Peter and Harry on the roof. This time she didn't jump out. She lowered her head and thought of her parents a little uncomfortably. After graduating from high school, she didn't get into college or find a job. In addition, all her friends moved away, which led to her being addicted to comics and games every day, escaping from reality and becoming a typical useless homebody, which made her parents very upset. It was because of escaping that she kept traveling through different universes. Because she didn't want to face the cruelty of reality, she escaped to the comic universe. Because she was a middle school girl, she wanted to make trouble to attract attention. She was afraid that she would disappear, and she was even more afraid that she would still not leave any traces in the comic world. Actually, she lowered her head and muttered, actually, Peter is a good fellow. The lonely penny he mentioned is also my former self. It seems that it's okay to abandon Deadpool and team up with him. Thinking of forming a CP, Gwen's eyes immediately lit up. Wait, there's a plan. After finishing the conversation with Harry, Peter returned to the room. He took off his plaid shirt to rest, and when his fingers were on the belt buckle, the rustling sound of fabric rubbing came from the closet. Bang! The next second, Gwen jumped out of the closet wearing men's underwear with I Love Metropolis printed on it. On her pink hood was a tie with a Batman symbol that Peter bought for Halloween last year. Surprise! Gwen knelt on one knee in the messy pile of pajamas, holding a cardboard scribbled with pink notes, with sex rape notice written crookedly on it. Peter, what do you want to do, Gwen? Form a couple. Gwen jumped onto the bed, and her bare feet made dents on the goose-down quilt. Now there are only two of us left in the house. The moonlight shone through the gap in the curtains, stretching Gwen's shadow into a ferocious image. Amid the whimpering of the mattress springs, Gwen jumped over, turned over and pressed down Peter's wrist, clamping her legs around his knees. The sexiest girl in the universe who broke the dimensional wall is forcibly kissing the most foul farm dad in the multiverse. What a great cross-issue joint title. Wow, Gwen kissed him without hesitation, giving Peter a fatal blow. Cut. She suddenly leaned back and shouted, covering her mouth and pointing at the non-existent camera in the void, this segment must be mosaicked. Peter looked at the pink-haired girl in his arms and reacted slightly. He was kissed by this pink-haired girl. And the other party's lipstick seemed to be soda-flavored. Chapter 797, The Battle Between Raven and Gwen. Are you jealous? Just as Peter was holding Gwen, who had attacked her, and thinking about whether he should retaliate, the door was pushed open with a bang. Dad, I heard you here. Raven's voice, who pushed the door open, stopped abruptly. At this time, Raven, who heard the sound and rushed over, stared blankly at Gwen, who was holding Peter. Gwen, who was held by Peter, was wiping the soda-colored lip gloss on her lips with Peter's handkerchief. Gwen, who had attacked Peter, was also a little confused. She had originally planned to kiss her face, but how did she kiss her mouth? Well, although this feeling is indeed good. Peter touched his hair. I think I need to explain. Raven's scream rang out in the room. The girl's dark clothes rushed into the room quickly with a wind. What are you doing? Gwen, Peter explained to his daughter. Ahem, Raven, things are not what you think, Gwen quickly said. Yes, that's the way it is. That's it. The mean Gwen jumped from Peter to the sofa and said, adding fuel to the fire. You woman. Every word of Raven's was filled with a sulfur smell of hell. The purple-black energy bullets bursting from her fingertips blasted the sofa where Gwen was standing into a rain of cotton. Bang! The pink figure rolled under the desk in the blast wave, and did not forget to reach out to take away her mask. Wow! Are all the magical girls in DC so enthusiastic? Gwen swung her grappling gun to the chandelier, and kicked the lampshade towards Raven. Come and try the special Marvel lollipop. Raven did not need a wand, and directly cast a spell without a wand. A shield instantly formed in front of her body, knocking the lampshade away. Gwen took the opportunity to take out a banana peel from her pocket and threw it accurately at Raven's feet. Take it. Causality slip attack. Angrily, Raven floated to avoid it, but saw that the banana peel was suddenly exploded by Gwen's remote control, and it exploded with a bang. Hey, are you going to rebel? Or are you going to tear down my house? Don't you consider the occasion when fighting? It's better to fight in the barn than here. Peter's angry shots trying to intervene were quickly drowned out by the two people's fight. You still want to seduce Daddy? No, this is not seduction, but it feels good, better than being intimate with my Jeff. By the way, Jeff is my pet land shark. Gwen hadn't finished her words to add fuel to the fire when Raven tore open a crack in the space, and countless black shadow tentacles rushed towards her. I'm a professional when it comes to tentacle play. Gwen turned over and jumped onto the ceiling fan, pulling out a rocket launcher from under her skirt. Try my love correction missile. The warhead banged in front of Raven and exploded into smoke. But soon Raven reversed her hand and made the smoke wrap around Gwen. Ahem. Now even magic girls are playing poison gas play. A pink figure rushed out of the smoke, and Gwen's clothes were smoking. Wait? Are you jealous of your dad? This sentence completely ignited Raven's anger. Asshole. I'm going to banish you to a dimension of eternal loneliness. When the first dark energy column pierced through the roof, Loki was in the room flipping through the ancient magic book he got from the Hogwarts library. After hearing the sound, he immediately put down the book at hand, pushed open the door and looked outside. As soon as he went out, he heard a bang sound. Gwen took a step and ran out of Peter's room quickly. But because of carelessness, she fell heavily to the ground, and she groaned in pain. Raven, who was furious, chased after her with a murderous look on her face. Wait, Gwen fell to the floor, raised her hand and said to Raven, I'm only 19 this year, I'm younger than you, then I even defeated Dr. Doom. Raven glared at him, I even defeated the three palaces. He is your father, Dr. Doom is not my father. Hearing what Gwen said, Raven was once again made to explode by her. You? Before Raven finished her words, she heard a voice from behind. Raven. Peter looked at the mess in his room, and his tone was filled with fear. Raven remembered that the last time her father said that, Loki was locked up in the detention room for several days. It's over. She was so excited just now that she seemed to have smashed her father's room. Well, sorry, Dad, my mind seemed to have been invaded by the three palaces demon just now, so I couldn't control my behavior. Raven quickly found the scapegoat. Really? Will the three palaces demon still control you at this time? Peter naturally didn't believe Raven's nonsense. At this time, Bomb, V, and Horace also came out of the room. Bomb, wearing pajamas, walked quickly to Peter and held his hand with some uneasiness. Leela and Kara walked to him. The two looked into the room, and Leela asked Peter, Master, have you encountered a terrorist attack? No, this is not a terrorist attack. Looking at Bomb, V, Horace, Tom and Loki's worried faces, Peter had no choice but to give up teaching the two girls a lesson. Okay, Raven, come here and use Restore to Original to restore the things in the house, Peter said, looking at Gwen. Gwenpool, you go downstairs and sleep on the sofa tonight, not in the guest room. Oh, Gwen stood up from the ground, shrugged at Raven, and went downstairs to the living room. After everyone left, Raven apologized to Peter a little embarrassedly. Sorry, Dad, I shouldn't be so impulsive. Peter was too embarrassed to say anything to the other party at this time. After all, he was caught by his daughter on the spot by a surprise attack and forceful kiss, which did have a bad impact. He even began to doubt whether Raven had seen Gwen enter her room a long time ago. It's okay. Remember to knock on the door next time you come in, Peter touched Raven's hair and said with a little timidity in his heart. Also, don't be so impulsive next time, okay, Dad, as long as she doesn't seduce Dad. Peter, don't use the word seduce next time, Raven, it's just a misunderstanding. Raven looked at Peter with a look of hesitation and serious suspicion. Seeing his daughter's expression, Peter couldn't help but flick her head on her hair a few times. After finishing the conversation with his rebellious eldest daughter, Peter went downstairs. Gwen, who was lying on the sofa, immediately pursed her lips and pretended to be angry when she saw Peter coming down. Peter looked at Gwen's mouth, which was so pouty that a soy sauce bottle could be hung on it. She was more pretentious than Bao, and almost laughed. He almost forgot that the other party was just a girl who graduated from high school and didn't go to college. I have some fruit snacks here, do you need them, Pool? Peter coughed and asked Gwen. No, really, Peter put the fruit snacks on the table in front of her. If you don't eat them, I'll throw them away. After hesitating for a while, Gwen grabbed them and stuffed them into her mouth and ate them. Murmur. Crunch, crunch. Gwen chewed hard, stuffing her mouth full, and said to Peter, I didn't mean it just now, I know, but I took off Spider-Man's mask before. You don't think I'm a bad person, do you? I just wanted him to bite me and let his radioactive spider infect me. At this point, Gwen stopped eating the fruit snacks, lowered her head, and hugged her shoulders with both hands. Would you say I'm disappointed in you? Peter was stunned for a moment, then shook his head. No, of course I wouldn't. I've heard too many such words. I'm probably the kind of person who disappoints others. I never say to others, I'm disappointed in him. Peter saw her finish eating the fruit snacks and turned to leave. Okay, go upstairs and go to bed. Remember not to sneak into my room next time, otherwise it won't be so easy next time. Holding the fruit snacks, Gwen looked at Peter's back as he went upstairs, and a smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. Thank you. The next day, early morning, Peter led Harry, Hermione and Gwen to Privet Drive in the Hogwarts world. Gwen, who was visiting the Harry Potter world for the first time, followed Harry back to the foyer and walked upstairs. Uncle Vernon and Aunt Vernon were not at Privet Drive, so Harry had to go get his things first. She looked around with interest and curiosity. This place is really fun, she said. It's too clean. You know what I mean? It's a bit unnatural. When they entered Harry's bedroom and Harry turned on the light, Gwen immediately changed her opinion. Well, your room is as messy as mine, Mr. Savior. Harry's room was indeed much messier than the rest of the house. Because of his bad mood before, Harry had no intention of cleaning his things. Most of his books were scattered on the floor because he opened each book to distract himself and then threw it aside. Hedwig's cage, which now needed to be cleaned, began to smell. His trunk was open, and Muggle clothes and wizard robes could be seen piled up in a mess inside, and some were scattered on the floor around it. Harry bent down and quickly picked up the books one by one, and then hurriedly threw them into the box. Gwen stopped in front of his open wardrobe and looked critically in the mirror on the inside of the door. You know, I don't think gold actually suits me. She grabbed a lock of spiked hair and said worriedly, do you think it makes my face look a little too pointy? If the face is too pointy, would it be an evil witch in your world? Harry looked at her over a book called Quidditch Teams of Britain and Ireland, not knowing how to answer. Yes, that's right. Gwen closed her eyes tightly, with a nervous expression on her face, as if she was trying hard to remember something. A second later, her blonde and pink hair turned into bubblegum pink. How did you do it? Chapter 798 Hermione's Self-Deception. We are not a couple. This is called talent. I can do it without training. I can change my hair color at will. Maybe this is the ability that Doctor Strange gave me after allowing me to travel through the world. You know, as a heroine, You have to have some talents that others don't have, Gwen shrugged and said. As soon as she finished speaking, her eyes fell on the flying broom in Harry's right hand, and her eyes widened. What the hell is this? Gwen asked him in shock. She had never seen such a thing before. This is a gift from Sirius Black, an international standard flying broom. Flying broom? This is simply the coolest thing I have ever seen. Gwen blinked and looked at him with a very expectant expression. Can you give it to me? Oh, sorry, I mean, can you lend it to me to ride? I have been looking forward to this thing since I was a child. When I read comics, I often imagined myself as a witch, not a witch, but the kind of witch who charms others. Harry hesitated for a moment. Although he was a little reluctant, he finally agreed after looking at the other person's eyes. Well, if you like, but people who don't have magic usually can't ride a flying broom. Harry felt that even if he lent it to Gwen, she wouldn't be able to succeed. After packing up, Gwen and Harry walked out together. Peter and Hermione were waiting outside. After seeing Harry come out, Peter said to him, Harry, I left a letter to tell your aunt and uncle not to worry. After a pause, Peter said to him, and I told them that you will be safe. Harry hesitated and said, thank you, sir. I think this may only disappoint them. No, I also said that you will come to see them next summer. After Peter finished speaking, he asked Harry, do you want to write a letter and leave it behind? Harry said a little unnaturally, forget it. He already liked the way he got along with Aunt Petunia before. Now he suddenly had to write a thank you letter, and he felt a little embarrassed. Taking a deep breath, he took out a few gold galleons from his pocket and said to Peter, Aunt Petunia said she was short of money recently and couldn't even buy a car. Maybe I can help them with this money. Seeing that Harry wanted to leave the gold galleons to his aunt, Peter stopped him. You forgot, Harry, the Muggle world can't use the gold coins of the Wizarding world. Peter took out a stack of British pounds and put it on the table. So you'd better change it into the currency they can use. Seeing Peter's behavior, Harry thanked him gratefully. I forgot. Thank you so much, Mr. Peter. There's no need to be polite between us, Harry. Well, we have to go. Peter waved his hand and asked Harry to get on the school bus with him. Harry took his luggage and followed Peter on the bus. He looked at the privet drive that was gradually disappearing in the sky with some melancholy. Are you okay, Harry? Hermione asked him worriedly. Yes, I'm fine. Harry smiled at Hermione. It's just that I've been dreaming a lot recently, and I'm not in a good mood. No, that shouldn't be described as dream. It's more like I'm looking at things from someone else's perspective. Harry stroked his aching forehead and said to Hermione. Peter, who was standing next to him, heard what Harry said and said to him, Harry, you're not dreaming. It means you have a connection with Voldemort. My connection with him? Harry was stunned when he heard what Peter said. Yes. Voldemort and you have an unusual connection. I suggest you learn how to resist this kind of thinking, and don't let any foreign objects invade your thoughts, in case Voldemort uses this connection to control you. But how should I do it? In the magic of Hogwarts, there is a magic that resists the invasion of the outside world into the brain blockage. Peter paused and said to Harry, this magical art of resisting the infiltration of the outside world's mind aims to close the brain, thereby resisting the invasion and influence of magic. In its advanced form, wizards can selectively suppress specific emotions and memories, so that the brain blocker can lie when necessary without revealing flaws. Hearing this, Harry asked Peter expectantly, Sir, can I learn this kind of magic? No, students do not learn brain blockage at Hogwarts, even if they have reached the highest level. Thinking of this, Peter fell into deep thought. He suddenly became interested in this kind of magic that can prohibit others from reading their own thoughts and even block some emotions and memories. If you master the brain blockage, you can have stronger strength in the spirit. He remembered that in the original world line, Harry mastered the art of occlumency a year later, and Snape taught him one-on-one. Snape was able to act as a spy among the Death Eaters under Voldemort's nose, which showed that he was quite accomplished in this area. After all, Voldemort was a skilled legilimency master, and had good reasons to doubt Snape's loyalty. In the end, Voldemort didn't notice Snape's problem, which showed that this guy hid it deeply enough. In addition to Snape, Malfoy should also know occlumency. Later, Snape discovered that Bellatrix might have taught Draco Malfoy the art of occlumency, and that Malfoy could use it freely. He had to find this guy if he had a chance and ask him about the art of occlumency. A question. Gwen, who was sitting next to him and was a little frustrated because she couldn't fly on her broom, suddenly raised her hand and asked Harry, Potter, Are you and Hermione a couple? What? Looking at Gwen, who suddenly asked this presumptuous question, Hermione looked at her angrily. What nonsense are you talking about? She quickly glanced at Peter and said loudly, Harry and I are just ordinary friends, but many people say that you are a couple. You are often together. No. Does being together often mean you are a couple? Hermione immediately became indignant. As long as it is a man and a woman, as long as they have been through life and death together, they must get married and have children? This is an idea that only people with few friendships would have. Harry nodded, indicating that he fully agreed with Hermione's statement. He wanted to say that Hermione liked Mr. Padraic and he liked Chu Zhang, but when he saw Hermione, who was about to go crazy, he quickly suppressed this idea in his heart. Peter coughed and interrupted Hermione. He said to Gwen, Gwen, aren't you and Deadpool a couple? While he was courting trouble, he also had his own thoughts on the fact that Harry and Hermione didn't develop a romantic relationship in the end. The two people's personalities are incompatible, so they will definitely not be together. Harry has a strong side. If Harry is not strong, he will not be able to bravely fight against Voldemort and lead the entire team. But in a way, he often insists on his own way. And once he makes a decision, he will be so stubborn that no one can change it. In addition, Harry rarely expresses his views on something clearly. For example, regarding the House Elves Liberation Movement, Hermione is firm in her position and cares for the disadvantaged groups and is committed to fighting for this matter all her life. Ron thinks Hermione is completely bored and doesn't need to liberate the House Elves. As for Harry's opinion is almost the same as no opinion. I think your idea is ridiculous, but I won't refute you, but if you mention it, I will find a way to change the subject. So even if Harry and Hermione have different opinions, Harry and Hermione will keep their own opinions and rarely argue. If the two were together, he could imagine the quarrel between them in the future, and no one would be able to convince the other. Gwen was a little upset by Peter's question, are you and Deadpool not a good match, and pulled Peter to pay for mental damages. Hermione suddenly said to Peter with some embarrassment, Sir, when you teach Harry the brain block technique, can you teach me? I don't want my thoughts to be seen by others. Peter was stunned for a moment and said, Of course. Harry sat next to him and complained speechlessly, Hermione must be afraid that her secret love for Mr. Peter will be known to others, so she wants to learn the brain block technique. But I guess everyone knows your idea. You are still stupid enough to think that you have hidden it well. The next day, Peter went to Hogwarts and asked Malfoy about the brain block technique. Raven and others on the farm encountered strange experiences. Raven was originally planning to go to the Talon Club and go to the Metropolitan with Lana, Chloe and Louise to watch a musical. As a result, as soon as she walked out of the farm, she saw a flash in front of her eyes. Then she came to a strange place. Looking at the deserted streets nearby, the dock in the distance and the salty and humid smell of the sea breeze, she looked around in confusion. Did she fall asleep? Or was she pulled in here by someone? Just as she was wondering, whoosh, Mark appeared in front of him. Mark? Why are you here? Mark also had a puzzled expression on his face. I don't know, I remember I was watching TV, and suddenly I felt a flash in front of my eyes, and then I came here. Isn't this a dream, Raven? Mark looked at the familiar scenery around him and said to Raven, No, it shouldn't be a dream. This feeling doesn't feel like a dream, and this place is a little familiar. This seems to be the dock in Gotham. Mark soon discovered why this place was so familiar. As soon as he finished speaking, he saw more people being teleported in together. In the astonished eyes of him and Raven, they saw Azu, Star-Lord, Loki, Boom, Tom, Mark and Way, and little Horace were all teleported in. Chapter 799 The Battle for Farm Inheritance officially begins. When several people were looking at each other in bewilderment as to how they ended up in this hellhole, a voice suddenly rang out. Hello. Hello. Hey, everyone, hello. Gwen suddenly appeared from behind the crowd, holding a microphone in her hand, wearing a fully armed outfit and a pink and white superhero uniform. Ahem, welcome everyone. I'm sure you all know that you're here for a child in need of help, Gwen said to everyone while holding the microphone. What? It's you who did this, Gwen. Seeing Gwen's annoying look, Raven immediately realized that it was Gwen who had dragged them here. Way asked her puzzledly, You said a child who needs help. What child is that? Ahem, it's not complicated actually. It's a dying child who has a wish. His wish is to see his favorite superheroes, especially those with the last name of Patrick, have a good fight to choose the final winner. Only the winner can leave here and reunite with his father, Peter, and he will get a title Peter Patrick's proudest child. Loki was stunned for a moment, then frowned and asked her, "You said that the last Marvel hero beach volleyball was the wish of a dying child, and now there is another wish of a dying child. Where do so many children come from?" Gwen stuck out her tongue, then said seriously, "Okay, I admit it, that child is me. I am the dying child who needs help, and my last wish is to watch you duel in a massacre, and by the way, I will also participate." Guess why I will also participate? Because I will win. Listening to Gwen's words, Azu and the others were all stunned. No one expected that Gwen would really come up with a farm battle and even plan to participate in it. Seeing her so confident, Azu smiled contemptuously. The others also had an expression of "you must be kidding me." Seeing that she was looked down upon, Gwen felt insulted. She narrowed her eyes, exuding an aura that she thought was very dangerous. "I noticed that none of you ever took me seriously, and you don't think I'm a threat yet, but I have trapped you here, so we can have a real battle to prove that you should be afraid of me. Do you understand?" Looking at the ferocious expression Gwen pretended to have, Bao couldn't help but laughed out loud. Then the others also started laughing. Gwen looked at this group of hateful members of Patrick's house, holding the microphone, and the whole person exuded a dark resentment. Seeing that Gwen was about to go berserk, Mark stood up and said to her, "You can't let us kill each other." "No, of course I can. Be more careful." "I may be your biggest surprise," Gwen made a low voice. "I'm a little trash, and I hate doing this kind of thing in my heart, but I have no choice because readers like to read it, otherwise the sales of comics will not be able to rise." She coughed and continued, "The rules are like this. You are now in a city without Batman. The law and order in this city, Gotham City, is seriously out of control. Gangs are rampant. Two-Face and Penguin are fighting each other. While fighting crime, the Robins are engaged in a series of battles to decide who will inherit the mantle of Batman." "Okay, after the background, then the rules. You can choose not to fight if you like, but I personally don't recommend it," Gwen said pretentiously. "The time is 1 week. Only the guy who gets the Batman cape in the end can win. And then he can go back to inherit the farm and live happily with his father. I'm done. Does anyone have any objections?" Gwen looked around and asked everyone. Star-Lord glanced at the other brothers and sisters with different expressions. He has begun to suspect that these relatives are going to attack him from behind. Especially Azu, who looks like he might stab him in the back at any time. After all, this guy has always wanted to inherit the farm and cares about his father very much. There is also the dangerous person Raven. Trying to calm down, he said to Gwen, who was holding the microphone, "It's like this, kid. I must be the first to admit your initiative. Really, I admire you. But you do look crazy. What if someone gets hurt? Or someone is going to lose? What will happen?" Gwen shrugged and said, "If someone falls to the ground, loses, or gives up the game, they will be immediately transferred to the sidelines for treatment. There is also a VIP ward. I put a lot of snacks there, specially prepared, but you won't have a chance to go home, so can you really do it?" Horace next to her asked her. "Just wait and see, little nameless." Gwen coughed and was about to run away to avoid being beaten up. Boom raised his hand and asked, "Are there any other prizes?" "Of course, Boom. I have prepared a large deposit for you, Tony Stark's super deposit." Tony Stark donated a large sum of money as a prize. Raven naturally didn't believe her nonsense. Would Tony be so bored? "Of course, I will use my flashback ability to easily handle it." Gwen snapped her fingers and a picture unfolded in front of everyone. Gwen said to everyone, "This is a comic strip that readers have never seen before. It happened in the 8th episode of Civil War. It was Tony's last words before he fell into coma." As she spoke, Tony Stark on the screen grabbed Spider-Man's hand and said to him with a difficult tone, "Leave a ridiculous amount of cash for Gwen." Seeing Gwen's operation, Raven and the others were all silent. This girl can not only travel through different dimensional worlds and trap everyone here, but also rewrite reality? "Okay, the rules are over. I'm leaving now. Good luck to you." After that, Gwensley ran away. After Gwensley disappeared, several people looked at each other and became alert to each other. Because they didn't know what the other person was thinking, everyone regarded the other person as an object of vigilance. Gotham City, night. The rain in Gotham always becomes sticky at midnight. Dick Grayson squatted in the depression of the gargoyle's neck, and the black short stick turned out after images between his fingers. In his sight, in the alley below, Several dark shadows were pressing the convenience store owner on the rusty fire escape, and the switchblade was throwing bright spots in the neon lights. Since Batman disappeared, the security in the city has become worse and worse, and these criminals have become more and more unscrupulous. Final warning, old man. The scarred man in the lead inserted the blade into the man's fingers. Next month, the protection fee will double. As soon as the scarred man finished speaking, the sound of glass breaking suddenly came from above. Several people looked up and saw only the blue afterimage condensed by the rain. Bang! A dull sound rang out, and Nightwing's knee hit the gunman's chin first, before the blood spurted out when the other party leaned back to the ground. Dick had already used the force to jump into the air, and his legs twisted the neck of the second thug and turned in the air. The dull sound of the other party's back hitting the ground, mixed with the sound of rain, vibrated in everyone's ears. Good evening. Dick landed on the lid of the trash can, and the trembling sound of the short stick hitting the metal lid spread in the alley. Who wants to be a human bowling ball? The scarred man was the first to react, and he roared and pulled out his shotgun. But Nightwing's short stick had already whistled and hit his wrist. Amid the crisp sound of the broken wrist bones, Dick leaned forward and accurately hit the opponent's ribs with his left elbow. The feeling of the broken ribs came to him along the combat suit. The fat man on the right swung the chain and swept it across, but Nightwing swung along the chain to the wall, and slammed the wall with the heel of his boot to use the force to dive. During the dive, he grabbed the end of the chain and pulled it, and the opponent's 200-pound body slammed into the corner full of cardboard boxes. The rotten tomatoes in the trash can exploded in the collision. Remind your boss. Dick stepped on the back of the chain man's neck, the tip of the short stick against his ear, and said coldly, "This is not the place for you to commit crimes." Seeing Nightwing so arrogant, the scar-faced man gritted his teeth and shouted, "Kill him!" After hearing the scar-faced voice, the two rushed towards Nightwing at the same time. The dagger and the steel pipe weaved a killing net in the rain curtain. Nightwing leaned back to avoid the straight blade, and when the back of his head was almost touching the ground, he suddenly bounced up and hit the knife holder's jaw with an inverted hook-like upward kick. The guy he hit flew half a meter into the air with a bang, and his head was embedded in the iron frame of the fire escape above his head. The man with the steel pipe took the opportunity to chop at his forehead, but Dick blocked it with his short stick. At the moment when sparks flew, Nightwing slid along the steel pipe and approached him, slamming his forehead into the other's nose. Bang! With a dull sound of shattering nose bones, he grabbed the enemy's collar and threw him over his shoulder into a puddle. Free teaching, he shook off the blood on the tip of the stick. Never fight on Robin Hood Avenue, especially when there is a vengeful flying man here. Then the exclamation of the convenience store owner made him turn around suddenly. This card man got up at some point, and put the shotgun against the trembling old man's temple. Throw away the stick. Otherwise, it will be smashed to pieces the next second. The scarred man's voice stopped abruptly. Nightwing's short stick flew out of his hand when the other party opened his mouth, and the rotating weapon accurately hit the gun component half an inch behind the trigger. The shotgun disintegrated into parts in an instant, and Nightwing had already leaped over and kicked the thug into the trash can with a roundhouse kick. As the metal lid of the trash can swung and closed, he caught the short stick that fell from the air and gently knocked on the box. "You are not worthy of negotiating terms with me, Pa. Pa. Pa." Applause came from behind, and a crisp female voice came to Nightwing. "Good skills." Chapter 800 Raven's Evil Plan. "I am Nightwing. You're quite skilled, though you're still a little far from being Batman." Raven appeared behind Nightwing and slowly walked out of the shadows. Raven was wearing a Hogwarts uniform, with a silver-green tie draped over her collarbone. Where the Slytherin emblem should have been, there was a Padraic embroidered with dark gold thread. Looking at the familiar image of Raven, Nightwing asked her in shock, "Are you Raven?" He thought of Raven as the Raven from his own world. No, that's not right. Nightwing soon realized that the Raven in front of him was not the Raven he knew. At least the aura was completely different, and this girl was obviously younger. "Who are you?" Nightwing nervously held the short stick and took a step back. He could clearly feel the deadly danger that the girl in front of him brought to him. "I'm Raven Padrick, daughter of Peter Padrick." "Of course, you can also call me Raven." Raven took a step closer to Nightwing and asked him, "I heard that Batman disappeared in this city, right? What do you want to do?" Nightwing, who had never heard of this name, frowned at her. "And I also heard that there is a guy pretending to be Batman who has been acting secretly recently." Raven looked at him with an unchanged expression. "So can you tell me what happened?" "No. I don't think we are familiar with each other to this extent." "You are not Raven, Nightwing took a step back and said to her with a short stick. "Then I'm sorry, I may have to use some violent means, Nightwing." As her voice fell, Raven raised her hand suddenly. With her movement, countless black magic energies suddenly formed black spikes in the air. Swoosh! The black spikes stabbed at Nightwing violently. Nightwing, who was shocked, immediately responded. He did a side flip to accurately avoid the first wave of spikes and quickly rushed towards Raven. Bang! The short stick slashed at the girl, but it hit the magic shield that suddenly appeared. The recoil of the shield formed by Raven's iron armor spell made his palm numb. Raven didn't even look back, but just silently chanted God's sharpness. With a whoosh, an invisible thing rushed over and brushed past Nightwing's ear. Seeing Raven easily blocking him, Dick immediately realized that conventional attacks were ineffective and turned to close-range suppression. He pretended to slide and attack the lower body, and when Raven lowered her head, he jumped up against the wall and used his legs to wrap around the opponent's neck and turn backwards. This was his killer move that he practiced in the circus, and he had strangled Deathstroke's proud skill. However, Raven's neck suddenly turned into smoke, and Nightwing's knee hit his elbow heavily. Before the severe pain reached his brain, Raven's entity had appeared behind him, and her palm wrapped in magic energy pressed against his spine. "Too slow," Raven said to Nightwing in Peter's infuriating tone. Nightwing twisted his waist and turned at the critical moment, and the short stick stabbed her palm. The two forces collided and exploded a circular airwave. With a bang, all the glass windows in the alley shattered. The two separated. Raven was a little surprised to see that Nightwing could block her. She thought that the other party was just an ordinary follower of Batman. Shaking her head, Raven began to get serious. In Nightwing's shocked eyes, Raven floated 2 meters above the ground. And the dark energy in her right hand turned into countless crows and swooped down on him. Seeing Raven's move, Nightwing immediately danced the short stick into a blue light wheel, and the clinking sound of metal hitting crows' beaks was as dense as a torrential rain. Bang! 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 The sound of violent collision suddenly rang out. However, he still couldn't resist it all. While he was not prepared, a crow broke through the defense and flew over, tearing a bloody mark on his left shoulder. "You are really a little slow this time, Nightwing." The next second, the voices of Ravens came from all directions. Dick gritted his teeth and tore the blood-stained combat uniform fabric, his muscles tensed like bowstrings in the rain. Taking a deep breath, he suddenly split the short stick into 2 sticks and threw them to the left and right at an angle that violated ergonomics. Raven's true body was forced to appear to catch the weapon, and Nightwing's flying kick was already in his face. However, the girl sneered and grabbed his ankle with her bare hands. Black magic energy flowed through his leg meridians throughout his body. Then Raven swung Nightwing half a circle and smashed him against the wall next to him. Bang! With a dull sound, the wall cracked like a spider web. Dick curled up to relieve the force at the moment of impact, but still felt a sharp pain. "Asshole!" he gritted his teeth and cursed. Nightwing's fighting instincts burned to the extreme when facing danger. He used the wall to rebound and thrust, aiming his fists at Raven's head to perform a scissors attack. Facing Nightwing's attack, Raven directly dissipated into a flock of crows, and her true body appeared on the fire escape 5 meters away. She finally raised her hands, and the space cracked like a torn oil painting, and countless dark tentacles wrapped in darkness surged out. Dick jumped and shuttled between the tentacles, and each swing of the short stick hit the tentacles accurately. When he broke through the siege and approached Raven, Raven's eyes flashed with surprise for the first time. Nightwing's right hand locked her throat with a tiger claw, and his left hand stabbed Raven's abdomen with a bat dart. "Good strategy." Raven's voice suddenly became ethereal. Then she turned around and let the bat dart stab her. The armor spell blocked the bat dart firmly. At the same time, Raven released a purple-black energy ring around Nightwing's neck. Nightwing struggled hard and tried to kick back. But soon a feeling of weakness came over him. Nightwing, who was powerless, fell to the ground with a plop. Nightwing used up his last strength to turn his head and found that the girl's eyes were flowing with a strange breath. "You are not a Raven from this world. Where are you from?" Nightwing asked her, panting heavily. "I said, I am Raven Patrick, from Smallville." After Gwen disappeared during the day, Raven left the dock and acted alone. She had no interest in Tony Stark's huge bonus. The only thing she wanted to do was to return to the farm and meet her father. Of course, Raven would not let go of such an opportunity to teach other brothers and sisters, mainly Zoo and Loki, in a fair and just manner. Anyway, Gwen was to blame for everything. Last time in the world of the invincible young hero, she wanted to exile Zhu and the others, but was stopped by Clark and her father. This time, she wanted to defeat Zhu and the others head on in the battle for the cape to prove that she was her father's proudest child. By the way, let Zhu and the others be convinced and not think of snatching their father from her. So after finding out the situation in Gotham, Raven found Nightwing. After experiencing Barty Crouch Jr. impersonating Mad Eye Moody, Raven had an evil plan in her mind. Since she wanted to steal Batman's identity and cape, she would start with the people close to him and gradually go deeper. Sorry, Nightwing. Raven was about to cast the Imperious Curse on Nightwing to read his mind. No. Raven immediately thought of the sequelae of the Imperious Curse. The Imperious Curse not only causes pain to the other party, but also makes the other party lose their mind after being used on a person, and do things completely according to the intention of the caster. Once this magic is successfully used, there is a certain probability that the self cannot be recovered. I am not that kind of evil black magician. Besides, the Nightwing in front of me is not a bad person. Giving up the attempt to use the spell, Raven's soul entered the other party's body and began to read the other party's memory. Before Nightwing could react, he gradually lost consciousness and felt a drowsiness. Raven's soul entered Nightwing's body and quickly read the other party's memory. She saw Nightwing staring at Batman's uniform in the Batcave. Tim, who was standing next to him, said to Nightwing, "I have some fresh news for you. Someone has already gotten ahead of us." Raven knew Tim. She had seen his photo in the Injustice world. Tim Drake was the third-generation Robin after Dick Grayson and Jason Todd. He was also an important member of the Bat family, the Young Justice League and the Teen Titans. Before becoming a superhero, Tim was a gymnast. Although he discovered Batman's true identity, he pretended that his inference was wrong. In order to get Batman's attention, he transferred the funds in the Penguin's account to those unfortunate people. But the Penguin found out about all this. He sent assassins to attack Tim's family, but Batman saved them. Since then, Tim's parents have been protected by the Witness Protection Program, and Tim has been trained by Batman. Nightwing frowned as he listened to Tim's words. "I've heard about the news. The intolerable citizens pretended to be masked heroes. No, I'm talking about a well-educated person. Maybe he's someone we know." Nightwing turned his head. "What do you mean? He used bat darts, Dick. I found this on a robber yesterday, and tonight, I also found the bat sling he used to evacuate. No matter who he is a very dangerous guy." Looking at the bat darts Tim handed over, Nightwing frowned even more. After reading Nightwing's memory, Raven's soul left the other person. After waking up, Nightwing looked up at Raven. As a result, he saw a scene that shocked him. He saw Raven standing in front of him, turned into Nightwing's image. He never thought that the other person would turn into himself. "From now on, I am Nightwing." Raven smiled at the shocked Nightwing. At the same time, in the rain, Azu stood on the building opposite the Gotham Police Department. With his hands on his shoulders, Zu looked at the citizens gathered in front of the police station. The citizens held signs and protested in the rain. How long will it take for street security to return to normal? How long will Gotham's curfew last? Mr. Commissioner, have criminal forces infiltrated the police? Reporters rushed to ask the overwhelmed Commissioner Gordon. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.